Whatever they can sell. There's like 8 or so plus. Maybe 11. That's why that's it. Not a lot of costumes. And so they come down. They're all these walls. Send them all in. And the elbow is just black. Look at my Iron Man just did 70 miles. Thank you. 7 hours. 7 hours. 7 hours. Cheering for a treat. My good friend Dustin here. You might have seen him at Bowl too. I met him at Bowl too. It's in the Roswell office. He's all over town. Big investor. Working to be a Bowl coach. And get ready. And I don't know, Wolfman Jack, if y'all didn't know, some of you so young have no idea who that is. Yeah. And you're not if you don't know who that is. FYI. Do you know who that is?
Yes, and someone at ALC clinic texted me and said, hey, Wolverine called. And he liked his hair and beard back. That's where we text you after.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
I thought you were Amish now.
Yeah, right. You knew me before I had a beard.
So anyway,
More Wolverine.
take it away, my man.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Okay, all right, we'll do that one time, right? Hello, how's everybody doing? We're gonna have, how are you? We are gonna have an awesome 3 hours. I don't know who gave me 3 hours, that maybe we can wrap this up a little sooner than that. So thank you all, first of all, for everybody for coming. My name is Dustin Kimberly. I'm the team leader of the Team Kimberly Real Estate Group out of the Roswell office, one of our sister offices here with Georgia Legacy Group. Mike and I have been talking about for a while doing this class for you guys. We've got a team of 12 up in the Roswell group. And he's asked me to come and talk to you guys about how to take 100 listings in a shifting market. So if you guys are okay, I'd like to go ahead and dive right in. You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. I'm gonna ask 4 or 5. I always like to start it off here. I'm gonna ask 4 or 5 people to raise your hand. Give me your name, how long you've been in the business, and what your favorite hobby is. Who wants to start?
I'm Joe Huggins, been in the business for 4 years. I guess my favorite hobby is playing the saxophone and have a little small jam.
That's cool, saxophone. And this is kind of a fun exercise. Somebody taught me this, is that every time, when we go out into the world, what's one of the most common, when you meet someone new, what's one of the most common things that they ask you eventually? Where do you work? Where do you work? What do you do? Well, in my opinion, I think that's a little backwards. Why do we define ourselves based on our work versus based on our joy? But what if you walked up to someone and said, hey, my name is Dustin, and I like to watch movies about aliens, which I actually do. Just letting you guys know that, right? That 3.5 years, that business did sports. Okay, we're a bunch of football, basketball, also. We got sports, we got saxophone, music. Who's next?
Carrie Ehrlich, I've been in the business 16 years. I like to paddleboard.
Awesome. Exciting. Who else wants to share? We're at least gonna get 5.
Allison Edwards, been in business for about 4 or 5 years, and I love her cook.
Awesome. That's awesome. Anybody else want to share?
I've been an agent to look for investment.
Okay, wow. What's your favorite hobby?
Travel and spicy food.
Travel, spicy food. Who else in here likes spicy food? You'll figure it out pretty quickly. I'm a very engaging speaker, so the more you sit there, I'm gonna find you. Okay, all right. So before I like to get started, I'd like to start kind of walking around the room and kind of getting out of your heads what your expectations are from today's class. We're gonna be spending 3 valuable hours in here. We're gonna do this in hour and 15 chunks. We're gonna take about a 10 to 15 minute break on each. And then if somebody will remind me to end 10 to 15 minutes early so we can get some questions, we can go from there. So we're gonna be teaching how to take 100 listings in a shifting market. Raise your hand if you need more listings. Okay, just there. Good. You're in the right room. All right. I'm the instructor, Dustin Kimberly. Here's my personal cell phone. I would ask everyone to write that down. Email is here, and then follow us on Instagram down here. I'm not sure if this is the right handle, so if you figure it out, you're more than welcome to come up here and change it. So, let's go ahead and start with some. What are you guys expecting out of today's class? Right? You got up this morning, you got ready, you came to the office, and you said, "I'm going to go to this class at 10 a.m. with this guy I've never met, maybe. And I'm gonna learn something about something." What is your expectation for today's class? When you leave here at the end of 3 hours, and you say, "Wow, I really got out of that class exactly what I was after." Give me some ideas of what we're after today.
Hopefully some new lead gen tactics and maybe some systems and models you have in place. Help you, understand.
Okay, what else?
The different team members that all go into, the systems to get those 100 listings.
So team members or systems, or both?
Well, both like ISAs or
Okay.
what all you have.
Team structure. Find me your first name.
Reese,
And I like to start this with at least 5 and 7, so anybody else got something? Cameron?
Experiences or insights from someone that's doing it in this market.
What else do we got?
Insight on the market.
Insight on the market. Think about it right now. At the end of the 3 hours, is it going to be a valuable 3 hours? What are you going to get out of this? What else we got?
How to not get overwhelmed?
Okay, who said that? Awesome, that's great. That's a good one. Is doing 100 deals a lot a year? Yes. You think we can get a little overwhelmed with that?
Yeah.
8.3 listings taken a month. That's 2.00 something listings taken a week. Think about that. That's a listing taken all year long, every 3.5 days. Without stopping, no resting. You're right, it can be very overwhelming. Good point. Remind me your name?
Freddie.
Freddie. Thank you, Freddie.
Well, hey, Fred, I haven't seen you in a while.
I was going to say, if I just learned how to do 50, I would be happy.
Okay, I like that, yeah.
I would just say, boy, aim high and I fall at 50, that's still a good.
I feel like we need to hopefully find out what our conversations would be looking like.
That's a good one. Well, remind me your first name?
Estrella
Estrella.
with an E.
That's so good, Estrella. It's time is super critical here. Go ahead.
I imagine this takes massive action, like Mike likes to say, so I'd like to see that. What is your strategy in that?
So massive action, what drives you to take the massive action?
And what kind of massive action you do to
Yeah.
achieve that? Like you sleep at all, like 24 hours a day?
Well, I think that's gonna go back up here to team structure. And also it's gonna come down to your price point, and that's one thing we're gonna talk about is that don't adopt someone else's big why. Don't adopt someone else's big vision. Everyone in this room has a different price point. They have a different why, they have a different goal, they have a different life by design. So one of the big takeaways I want you guys to take from today is that, yes, we're teaching you the fundamentals on how to do 100 listings in a shifting market, but that can be carved up to 50 very easily. If you're wanting to do $25 million and your average sales price is 250, and then Joe's average sales price is 500, Joe only has to do 50 deals. It's all about your life by design, but these are the fundamentals that at the end of the class, you can break this down to 10 deals. You can break this down to 1,000 deals. The only difference is going to be how big does that team need to be to handle the leverage on the other side.
Your daily structure, weekly structure look like.
Schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. What's your first name? Mike. We'll take one more. I haven't used a Crayola in like forever. This is awesome.
Yeah, knowing everything you know now, if you could go back like 5 years, what would you tell yourself? Like everything.
That's a good one. Perfect. Remind me your name?
Yeah, Custo, Custo.
Thank you. I did not take on that one. All right, perfect. Well, let's get started. So when I start this class, I'm going to start with something you guys have probably seen before. Let's see if we get it down. Just keep you on track. That way we get everything you guys are asking for. So when we start the class, we always start with the fundamentals. Now, does anybody know what this little guy is? All right, perfect. So I'm just gonna do L. All right. So you've got leads, you've got listings, you've got leverage. Now, has anybody ever taken the L's and stacked them up on top of each other? So when Gary wrote the one thing with Jay Hobson, right? He said if a person chasing 2 rabbit catches none. And Gary said the top 100 mastermind a few months ago was probably, no, I think it was Family Reunion last year. He said that I can walk into any business and within 3 to 5 minutes, I can tell you exactly what's wrong with your business and where you need to focus. And of course, I'm sitting there like, well, how can you do that? He said, well, it's very simple. If you don't have enough leads, then you can't have listings. If you don't have enough listings, then you don't have a need for leverage. So until you can solve the top of the funnel, there's no reason on focusing on the bottom. You've got to have enough leads coming in to lead generate in order to have enough listings. You got to have enough listings to lead generate to have enough structure. Can you build a team out of 1 deal a year? Probably not. But with 50, you could probably do that, right? So when we talk about leads and leverage, we start this class with our leads. Where are they coming from? How are we getting them? Once we get them, what do we say? That's critical. And I'll tell you, we're going to spend a fair amount of time there because I want to bring it all the way back to the beginning every time. Is that we're talking about how to take 100 listings in a year, which is a completely different conversation than if you're going to take 10 a year. And the reason for that is you have to ask more qualifying questions. You have to be able to dig deeper faster to do 100 transactions a year. And I want to be very clear with everyone. It's not for everyone. What I don't want is I don't want at the end of the class for everybody to run out of here and, all right, I'm going to put together the schedule to do 100 transactions a year when maybe your life by design doesn't demand it. Because you can't have something without sacrifice. So you walk out of here and you put together a schedule in place. You've done 10, 15, 20 deals a year. And now all of a sudden you're looking for 100. And all of a sudden you've changed your whole world, but you didn't notify anybody in your family, in your life. You didn't notify anybody about that. So everything's changed. So make sure the takeaway today for each and every one of you is how does this apply to my business? All right. So let's start with the lead. Where do they come from? Anybody? You've been one of my classes. No? Okay. So let's talk about where our business comes from. So I want us to go around the room. There should be 10, 15, 20 different answers here. So we get up, it's day one. We've decided that we want to take 100 listings in a year. Where do we go find those? Who do we talk to? Okay, David, perfect. Good. What else do we talk to?
SOI.
Okay, SOI, good. What are the sources that we get business from?
Motivated sellers, bid those are.
Families.
Okay, family, I think that probably be up here, or here. This goes. What else?
Referrals.
Okay, good, there they are. Okay. Good,
I do use some lead gen companies.
Sign calls.
lead gen companies?
Yeah.
Alright,
Thankfully.
Social media.
Sign calls. Yeah.
sign calls, we don't get as many of those, but yes, they still apply.
Investors.
Investors. Networking,
Open houses.
open houses, we've got that one.
Social media.
Okay, social media. I know, you're always sitting there like, oh god, write down all the sources, we've seen this before. Well, we're not gonna talk about the leads. I want everyone to write down on your piece of paper, whether you're typing, whether you are writing, I want you to write at the top of your paper, event-based selling. And that's what the next hour is gonna be about. And this is the critical thing that we're gonna talk about all day long. And my goal today is to dig deep into every one of these events until when we leave here, you have nothing but clarity around what those events are. So now that we've got database, SOI, first sale by owner, referrals, open houses, inspired, lead gen companies, sign calls, investors, networking, social media. Now, these are all sources that we get business from. But the question is, who are these people? What was the impetus for them becoming this lead? You have to go behind the lead. See, we don't talk about that a lot. We talk about, I gotta call a FISBO, I gotta call, but why is a FISBO a FISBO? What got them to the market? Why is an expired an expired? What got them to the market? Why is your database selling them? You see, where we get them from is important, but why they're there is critical to taking 100 in a year, because we've got to determine quickly, are they motivated or are they not? So, in anyone, and it'll be like 10 to 12 here. So, what are the events that cause someone to do a real estate transaction, whether it be a buyer, a seller, or a renter?
Getting married.
Oh, who said that?
Married.
Okay, all right, marriage. Why is it always back to back? Everyone else has- it's just like, they're like marriage relocation, it's like marriage divorce. Gosh, I mean, in every class it's that, marriage divorce. What about divorce marriage,
A growing family.
Or an increase in baby.
Better than murder.
Empty nesting.
New job. Yeah, downsizing. Retirement.
Okay, and we said new job. Okay, new job.
Change your income.
Downsizing?
I'm gonna ask your downside. That is the most debated motivation that I've heard in a while. So we're gonna look at that, okay? Okay, what else? For those of you that have been in the industry for a long time, there's not an answer you don't know, right? I mean, it is the ABCs here. What we're doing is we're unpacking what's behind this. So what are some other ones? We got marriage, divorce, new baby, new job, change in income, relocation, downsizing.
People are tired of renting.
Tired of renting, all right? Just use that for selling or. No, buy or sell, what, think about it this way, and I think that's one thing that we forget, is that, yes, we're agents. But we're also a consumer as well. We have families, some of us have kids, we have animals, we have jobs. Our spouses may have jobs. So think about yourself for a second, introspectively, what has caused you to move in your life? What has happened? What is the event that's gone on in your life? Retirement, better school. There you go.
Diversifying investment, trying
Investment,
Current neighborhood has changed.
okay?
Moving closer to the grandkids, I get a lot of people that. They just want to be near their grandkids.
I love that, it's great. What about debt?
Yeah.
Death is a really big driver of the real estate industry, and it's right up there with the board for everything.
Some people move too because they just need a different type of house. They need one level.
Floor plan.
You know, the floor plan needs to be.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
What about crime rate?
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't that be one? Crime rate?
Could be, talk about it, but. Keep it off the list, but,
Well, that goes in kind of with the neighborhood.
no, it does, neighborhood change. Had someone last week put in politics. I think that's a good one. And it's not what you're thinking. Politics relative to intergenerational wealth. Did you know one of two things that a president can immediately sign into order with no matter what side of the aisle you're on is changing 1031 laws and the wealth transfer tax? It's one of the big things. If you've got a client who's maybe in their last 15 to 20 years of investing, call it their 60s, and they don't have confidence in whatever administration may be coming in, whether they be lowering the tax transfer, they may go ahead and sell now versus risk a new administration.
Yeah, sure. Things change.
This is a big, big deal for your net worth out there over 10 million. This is a big focus. When you sell, right? They're figuring out how are we gonna get this wealth to the next generation with as little tax as possible. Okay. What questions do we have so far? Let's go ahead and take a pause here. What questions do we have so far? How to target these? Okay. How do you uncover these? Yeah. All right. So let's unpack, and this is gonna take us about 30 to 45 minutes, and I want a lot of engagement here. Like, this is really important. What we're gonna try to determine here is what got us here. So we've got event-based selling. Every single person in this room has events going on in their lives with their clients, with themselves. The question is, what are those events that are leading to someone buying and selling real estate? And ultimately, how do we identify these faster so that we can do a listing faster so that we can hit 100 listings a year? Remember, we're gonna bring this all the way back to the reason why we're here, but this applies to all sides of businesses, 50 deals, 20 deals, 10 deals. It applies to everyone. So let's start with marriage. Tell me about that conversation. Has anybody in the room ever had someone do business with them, list a house with them because they were getting married? Raise your hand. Okay. Someone like to share? Tell us about that. Go ahead.
Friend of mine getting married and they wanted to sell both their condos and then buy a house. So that's always fun. It's a free transaction.
Okay.
Same thing, they were just a young couple that they were just like. Combining their houses together, so just like, hey, we're done renting, you wanna buy a house?
Yeah.
Got married.
I had lead source that was engaged, and it took a long time to finish, so now they're married, they're ready to start a house.
Okay. So, and I think it's important that we unpack this because who has lost buyers to the market right now because of higher interest rates? Yeah. And when you're asking yourself these questions, I want you to think of something. I would write this down, because this is what's critical as you accelerate your business forward is what is keeping my client in the transaction? Has anyone in the room ever done a deal, ever done a transaction, ever helped a buyer or seller buy a house or sell a house? And at every step of the way, everything you said, they did. I know it's shocking, right? Like, no, right? Like you called you, remind me your name in the back. Harry calls them. Hey, I need you to reduce the price. Okay. Rarely happens. You get an offer, 10 grand below ask. Yeah, we'll take it. The inspection comes in, it's 98 pages. You're so terrified. You call them and say, hey, we need to do this stuff. All right. You're like, is this real? Are they playing a joke on me right now? You get to the closing table and they go, wow, that was the best transaction ever. Okay, what's going on here? And then they hand you a commission check for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And you're walking out of there going like, what just happened? Did I just get paid to do that? I'd be willing to bet you, if you look back, they had the highest level of motivation, didn't they, Gary?
Yeah, and a lot of trust.
A lot of
I feel like
trust.
the clients that trust you, do just respond positive.
Has anybody ever had someone that was listing in the past 3 years? Has anybody ever had someone that listed a house and never asked you the following question: what do I do if my home sells and I don't have somewhere to go? Has anybody ever had one of those? Yeah. They could have been moving out of state. They had a job transfer. It didn't matter. What mattered was the motivation. The event was so important to them, they would just deal with it as they went. See, the key thing to keep in mind is that if we have 100 of those, that's when it gets fun. Terry, how do we have 100 of those people every single year?
Just talked to 350 people.
You know what? You want to teach? I mean, that was it. You got all of the third out. That's right.
That's
We don't
what
want to
I'm
do that.
saying.
I'll write this down. You have to lead generate, or you have to tolerate unmotivated buyers and sellers. If you've got a deal currently right now that's got a lot of friction on it, it's not the deal. You need more deals. So we'll go back to the marriage here. Let's talk through that. What's keeping them in the deal? So you said they're selling both of their homes and buying one.
You're renting.
They're selling it, so they're taking it from rental and they're buying something. So what is their motivation? Could they realistically move in to one of the places and not buy something?
Oh, absolutely.
So what's the motivation here?
Something bright and shiny and problem.
Okay, is that something strong enough to keep someone in the deal?
This was, in this case, I mean, they really wanted to start their family and start their life
Sure.
together and something brand new.
Sure.
With new construction. That was one of those deals that it all just lined up.
So with rates, if rates would have gone up another %, could they have still afforded that? Okay, so they were going no matter what. So what was the event? Was it, so when they called you, let's think about, and this is back to what you were saying, straight, right?
Yes.
So part of the conversation we have in this class is, what is the conversation behind the line? What's the conversation behind the phone? See, we've got this wonderful thing, it's called cell phones, right? And somebody comes in and says, hey, you need to make a bunch of calls, and when you find someone who wants to get married, go sell my house. But they never tell you what's going on the other side of the phone. What is the customer saying in that moment? So when did they call? This is where it gets fun.
She called me, I talked to her at her college graduation. We
Okay,
were just talking about it, I've known the family for years. There's just, one of those, look, we were at a college graduation party and she's just like, we are getting married and we would love to find a house.
so did they call you right after they proposed?
Well, we were looking because we knew, yeah, it was pretty close. I think graduation.
I mean, was it like this, like, what's your first name? Cameron. Hey, Cameron, I'm getting on one knee. Hold on a second. I want to buy a house, okay, right? Hold on, she might say yeah. Right, that's what we're trying to determine here.
Right.
Did they call you after they got married?
Well, after they got married, yeah, at their wedding.
So they called you at the wedding?
No, when they got married, I was there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Terry?
And then after they got engaged.
Okay, so after they got, I think this is important because what we have to look at is, where in the sales cycle are they calling you? Are they calling you when they get the idea? Are they calling you once the event is over? Are they calling you moving through the event? Does that make sense?
We got the call, it was like, they got engaged and everyone's like, oh, congratulations. They're like, I guess they had their talk that every newly engaged couple does. They said, we need to buy a house.
Yeah,
And they knew we, for years, they said, damn, what do we gotta do?
all right,
I said, here we go. Let's start.
get in touch with the lender and rock and roll.
Absolutely.
So, focusing question, if you had 100 people like that, could you take 100 listings in a year and do 100 sales?
Yes, it would be awesome.
Why don't we go find one of those? Go ahead.
Two of my girlfriends just got engaged.
Uh-huh.
They're beyond very much. First, it was something they wanted to do, bought a home before proposing.
Uh-huh. So they bought a home before proposing. And why did they buy a home before proposing?
I don't know.
So that's the qualifying question. The key critical thing is, I would write this down. The question is why? If you want to do 100 listings in a year, you can't stop with just the motivation and the event. You have to ask why. Yes, thank you, you're getting married, but why? Yes, thank you, you want to buy a house and you're getting married, but I'm thinking to myself, what's going to keep you in the deal when it gets tough? Because that's where the extra 99, 100 deals comes from. If you just go in and say something like, Cam, hey, oh, great, you guys are getting married, awesome, let's meet in my office. Well, now you've just taken a whole lot of time away from what might be people that are ready to write contracts today. And that's why it's critical in each one of these events that we focus in on where they're at in the event. Not just the event, where they're at in the event. Do you get a call and it says something like, Terry, I think I'm gonna ask her to marry you. What? I'm sorry, why are you calling me right now? And then once we get engaged 6 months from now, and then in a year, we're gonna get married and buy a house. See, that's great, but that's a follow-up. We have to be able to delineate the difference between a follow-up and an appointment right now. That make sense? Questions about marriage?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. Was that a real estate? That was a real estate question, that's right. I gotta write that one down. All right, divorce. Let's unpack this one. Who here has done a real estate transaction or taken a listing because a couple was getting divorced? All right. So somebody like to share about that experience. Tell me about that event.
So I had a lead on the market. The husband and wife was very bitter fight. Kind of calm one spouse down, just keep the lid on the anger. And we got them under contract right away. Got 3 days from the closing table, and the buyer decided they didn't want the house. So I said, right, we'll get there, it's fine if you don't want to go through with it. And then they decided, you know what? I'm gonna let my wife take the house and she'll just pay me if we want to go back on the market. Lost a lot of work and paid in
Yeah.
counseling session
Yeah.
because they just decided the wife wanted to keep the house, and so he bought it out of.
Wife wanted to keep the house.
Yeah.
That's a
All
tough.
that one.
Who else has got a story they'd like to share about selling? Like, tell me about the process. Like, when did they call? How did they call? Where were they at in the process? Terry?
I was the first one to know.
Terry, do you come in the front? 'Cause I feel like you're gonna be talking all day.
I usually am sitting out there, but I'm sitting back here today. I was the first person that they called, so nobody else knew, and I couldn't even tell my husband because they were family friends, and it was like, who are you showing property to? Nobody. It was awful.
Yeah,
It's not fun. It's not fun.
yeah, it's not. But is it a driver of the real estate business? Yes or yes?
Oh, yeah.
It is. See, these are things that we don't necessarily want to say, hey, I'm gonna get up today and call all of the new divorce list. I mean, it's not what we want to start our day with, but at the same time, if we've earned the right for someone, I mean, Terry, was it not a good feeling when they called you first? The fact that they trusted you,
Yeah,
they could have called anybody,
yeah.
but the fact that you were that consultant of choice, that you were that advisor of choice. I'm sure that didn't happen just from a stranger. I'm sure you earned that trust.
Well, yeah, I mean, and again, it goes back to trust for those clients, and yeah.
Absolutely. So, anybody else have another seller? Go ahead.
So my our transaction was a little different. The seller, they'd already gotten through the divorce. And he bought her out because she didn't want to stay there. She left.
Mhm.
And then he wanted to list because he didn't want to be there either. So then he was very motivated to sell and get out of the house. Just not be in that
Right,
anymore.
so if I'm hearing that right, they were getting divorced and she bought him out,
He bought, no,
he bought her out,
he kept it, yeah,
and then he decided to sell it, is that right?
yes.
So the original, so I would say that motivation there wasn't divorce. Because they got the
Yeah, that
divorce
was
without
not
selling it.
divorce, that was really more, yeah, the memory.
Was it not that the new wife didn't want to be in the house?
There's not a new wife yet.
But do you see why it's critical to ask those qualified questions? Too many times you get wrapped up with saying like, oh yeah, it was the divorce that caused that sale, but the divorce went on with or without that sale. See, if you want to accelerate your business, if you want to do 100 listings in a year, you have to ask the question that you're unwilling to ask. Has anybody ever worked with a seller where midway through the transaction, you kind of felt like you weren't on the same team? I'll raise my hand. Come on, right?
Yeah,
You're supposed to be their trusted advisor and they're omitting like 30% of everything you need to know to do this, right? See, it can be like that. So, but the divorce, let's go back to when they call you. So is anybody familiar with how the divorce process works?
no,
No?
it's lengthy.
It's lengthy, okay, so let's talk about the lengthy, because when you can get in the middle of it, when you can help someone, when you get that call, what is the difference between I'll call you back? Or what is the difference between you're walking out the door saying, please don't hang up the phone, I'll be there in 3 minutes, right? Like, what's the difference? We've got to get crystal clear on that, and clarity is everything when it comes to doing 100 listings in a year. And the biggest challenge you're gonna have is reminding yourself of it every single day. How many people in the room in the past 3 years have had someone sell because they wanted to take advantage of the market? Anybody had someone that sold purely based on money in the past 3 years? Yeah. Is that a motivation? Is it? So, has anybody ever had a listing they got an offer and said, if I can't get that, I'm just not selling? Is that enough motivation to keep you in a transaction? See, that's based on the market. So here in the divorce, interest rates go to 7.5% and the market goes down 10%. Are the divorcees still selling most of the time? You see what we're doing here? We're closing that loop. What is the event that's going on in the seller's life that when times get hard, they're staying in the transaction? You know what? I know we wanted 600 for that house and we're only getting 580, but we have to sell. Because I know right now Sandy Springs is down 52% according to Chartmasters. I think Buckhead's down 61% according to transactional volume. There's a lot of people that are saying, I can't get my price, I'm not selling. I wouldn't bet my income on that. The question is, are you? When someone calls and says, hey, you know, we want to test the market. Anybody ever had someone want to test the market?
Yes.
And then it didn't sell? Terry, did they pay you when it didn't sell?
No,
No, I didn't think so. Okay. See, we've got to get crystal clear, and I know this sounds repetitive and redundant, but if you can get crystal clear on this here, the 100 deals will fall out of the sky. Because you're simply not going to spend your time on what's not going to do it right now. You'll start hearing things from yourself like, Cam, it's really great that that's going on, so can I call you back in March of next year? Versus, come on, let's have a meeting today. Because you got to fill your time and your calendar with the motivated right now. Talk about new baby. Anybody ever had someone sell a house with them because they were pregnant? I have. Raise your hand if you haven't raised your hand yet today. Always. Raise your hand if you don't want to raise your hand anymore. We're here all day together, everybody. So let's talk about a new baby. Raise your hand if you've ever helped someone buy or sell a home because they were bringing in a new child to the world or they were expanding their family. All right, who wants to share an experience with that one?
I had someone a couple of years ago sell, because they wanted to come home to her parents to have more help with the child, because they both work.
Okay,
So we sold their house and then they didn't buy anything else.
so they wanted to move home to have more support from the family. Why?
They were both career people and, it made more sense for them to be with.
It made more sense, it's great, but where's the why? Go deeper.
They wanted to care for the baby, I guess is the line.
Could they pay for care for the baby?
I guess they could have.
Okay, so where's the why? You see what I'm saying? Traditionally, when we talk about new babies, we're talking about space and stuff like that. It's like, how are we going deeper? What's the why? I want to know what's creating the pain in your world that you're gonna stay in this transaction with me. Can you not afford childcare? Okay, that's a different conversation. And in fact, it wasn't the new baby, it was the financial hardship. See, we've got to get clear why they're in this transaction with you. That makes sense?
I was helping some buyers earlier this year. I think it's a friend of mine from church. They needed more space. They were tired of, just living in an apartment complex with like neighbors. They wanted to start building equity.
Okay.
And, they had not a lot of time, but they're very motivated. So you got to the point where I think they said they settled, but they probably picked the house I wouldn't pick for them, just because they were running out of time.
Right.
Still a great house, but I think they probably would have wanted something a little different, like how they had.
What was creating that time pressure?
The lease was that day.
Okay. Motivation or motivation?
That's definitely motivation.
But let's think about it for a second. If they wouldn't have found something, could they release?
I think they could have month to month, but they're not with jump like some family, $200 a month, and you're trying to look at about all costs.
Okay.
So I mean, they could have that.
Did they have the space for the baby?
I don't think they would actually, they would have helped them there.
Okay. So let's talk about when that conversation came in. How old is the child?
I was just born, so probably 2 months.
So this is always a fun one. When do you traditionally, Terry, get the call about someone wanting to buy or sell a home while having a new baby?
When they're pregnant.
When they're pregnant? So is it like, read it, like, Terry, we're pregnant? Or is it like 12 weeks later? But see, this is what's critical. But this is what's critical. We don't think about these conversations. When in the event-based process are they calling you? Because if you can identify when they're calling you, you can know where to look in the process. You can know on social media when to see that event that's going on. If you see one of your database at a baby shower, is it too late? Do they already?
Hello, good morning.
Does that make sense? It's all like. I mean, are they calling you when they're heading to the emergency room going into labor? I don't think so. No. So when did they call you, Terry?
3 months pregnant.
3 months pregnant, okay. Who else is?
3 months before she's due.
Yeah, and how did you find out? Was it just a call? Was it social media? What was it? It was a call. You guys see what I mean? Where is this happening? Easy for us just to say, oh yeah, you know, they're having a new baby.
The revealing of the baby gender.
There you go.
Somebody need to ask the question.
That's right. Now let's talk about an environment where this isn't a motivation. This isn't an event going on in their life. Because it's easy to say what it is. The environment.
Like the same way. Go through that one in there. I don't care what anybody said.
I'll give Vicky.
You got it.
Hey, Dad. Pressure. A lot of pressure there. Give me an environment. Has anybody ever had a client that had a baby and they didn't need to sell?
They already have a big enough house.
Bingo. Yeah. Okay, already have a big enough house. Has anybody ever had a client that had a baby, they didn't have enough space, but they had just enough? It was a little tight, and they could have moved, but not really. Yeah. So here's a good question. So put yourself in the mind of that couple. You're married, you've got a 2-bedroom apartment, a 2-bedroom townhome. I'm trying to figure out the townhome action. 2-bedroom townhome. So you decorate the bedroom, the baby comes, great, and then all of a sudden you see the walls closing in on you. And this is back in May. So you get with your partner's spouse and you're like, honey, we need to buy a house. Okay, great. So they call Matt. Matt, we want to buy a house. Great. Gets them in touch with a lender, shelter, something like that. Shelter says, congratulations, based on your income, you guys can afford $500,000 on a house. Awesome. Fast forward, some reason they put that on pause. Who knows why? Then all of a sudden they call Matt back yesterday. Hey, Matt, we want to buy that house now. Okay, great. But they're calling him right now, man. They're calling you now. Are they having a baby? Ask them that. Be careful. Actually, just ask them, or what are the things happening in your life? It's funny with the humor, but when you make it so simple, it gets really clear what we're looking for here. But if that person called Matt back a day ago and said, hey, Matt, we're really ready to move now. The walls have closed in on us. Their income has not changed, but interest rates are now 6.5%, 7%. What's going to keep them in that transaction? What if they can't afford the mortgage? So they just make it work. See, we're looking for things that keep our sellers and our buyers in the transaction. What is the event that's going on that's going to keep them in the transaction? Questions around this? You guys getting the theme here? Ask powerful questions, and don't stop at them. Just get, we're getting married. Okay, great. When? Okay, great. What are your plans? Okay, if you don't sell one house and move into another one, what's going to happen? Because if you ask, if you had 100 people, this would be a really strange thing if you did, but if you had 100 clients having babies at the same time, and somebody else calls you and says, hey, I'd like for you to come list my house, I want to test the market, who are you calling back first? That's right. The question is, how do we not stop until we have 100 of these? How do we not stop until we have 100 of these? But we get caught up in it. We leave this class today, we go out in the halls, we're like, yeah, I'm gonna ask qualifying questions. And then somebody calls you and goes, hey, we want to test the market. And you're like, all right, I'll be right over. I'm coming. But the reality is what if they're not a qualified buyer or seller right now? We got to ask ourselves that question, and specifically in this market. Even more so in this market. More than ever, we have to be clear about why is someone in a transaction. All right, let's talk about new job. Anybody had someone list a house because they got a new job?
In a relocation.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be relocating across town. So let's talk about that event, a new job. What specifically about a new job would motivate someone? Why would that be an event for them to sell and buy a home? Higher income. Good.
If it's a relocation, they have to move. They have to be at a certain place by a certain time, so they're going to stay in the transaction.
Who in the room has done a relocation transaction and paid a relocation fee? Yes. Tell me about that.
Oh, they're awesome. They just keep going up. It used to be 30%, then it was 33, then it was 35, then it was 40, now it's 50.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me about, have you ever done, for those that have you ever done a relocation where they were an out of state buyer and they flew in for the weekend?
Yeah.
Tell the class about that, if you would.
Fun. You see like 12 or 14 houses a day and you pick one. I actually like those people.
Now, think about that for a second. Someone got on an airplane to fly into town to see you. So you could show them 12 houses, of which they had to pick one because they had a new job that was starting at a deadline. Motivated, yes or yes?
Yes.
So, yes, Terry, the the referral fees are not that great,
But it is usually.
but how efficient?
Yeah.
I mean, it is bang, 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 and I'd be willing to bet that if you analyze the time you spend on some transactions and the time you spend on that one, I'd be willing to bet you it's about the same.
Well,
Income per
and
hour,
it is nice that they're very motivated and they do have,
that's it.
they can't be that picky, they have to pick one.
But it's about the motivation. They're here for one reason. So the question, the focusing question is, Terry, if you had 100 people flying in, it can't be the same weekend, because that would be tough. You'd have to get some help from everybody. And somebody calls you and says, hey, I'd like to test the market. I need you to come out this weekend, but I'm showing 100 people this weekend that are moving to Atlanta. Who you call back first?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I have a question, new at this, so I have people that come in from out of town and, you know, they're just looking for a new location. When you say a relocation, is that like a company like UPS that tells it to you and you only get a certain percentage of it?
They're relocation companies, it's not usually the corporation, it's WHR, Cardis, Aries, those are the relocation companies that like UPS and ADF, AGCO contract with, and then they contact you, so you have to be certified with the relocation.
That's what I thought. Well, maybe a class on how to do that would be good. All right, thank you.
So you guys get the theme, how do we have 100 of these? How do we have 100 of massive events going on in people's life that drive them to want to do buy and sell real estate? Yes, the title is how to take 100 listings in a shifting market, but this applies to both the buy side and the list side. The qualifying questions are all the same. Go ahead, Matt.
Gotta stay top of mind,
Say again?
stay top of mind,
That's right.
for people.
Yeah. Are you asking me how?
No, I'm saying like, in order to get.
Yeah.
Motivated meetings. You stay top of mind.
How many times should we be calling our database a year? 4. MREA says we should be touching our database how many times a year? 36. These opportunities come when you've earned the right to be in business with them. Now, for those of you, raise your hand if you've been in business less than 2 years. Here's the great news. You can still participate in some of these. You can get lists of, unfortunately, obituaries. That's a real business model. There are people that do that all day long. Are there people out there right now who someone in the family has passed and they do not know how to liquidate the real estate asset? Are there people out there right now like that? Can you be their advisor? Absolutely. Same thing with divorce. Are there people out there right now that are getting divorced that don't have a realtor that they would use to help with the divorce? Actually, let me rephrase this. This one's good. How many people out there, the husband and wife or the partners don't agree on who the realtor should be, need a random realtor to help them sell the house? Because no matter who's recommended, they're gonna say no. Has there ever been a part of that one? I mean, it doesn't matter if Sirhan comes down. You're not hiring that person just because. Does that make sense? Let's do change in income and then we might knock out one more, then we'll hop into a break here. This one, guys, it's a good one. Has anybody ever had someone buy or sell a home because they lost their job? Would you like to share that with everybody?
Sure. I had a client that was working in corporate, and they were released from the department, so they had to just take a severance package before they could continue their downgrade, so they had to relocate, so they wanted to Minnesota. So that was their motivation to relocate out of the state.
Yeah, so it was a loss of job and a reload. Motivated? Yeah. Bad. See, aren't you thankful that you got that call though, that you could help them? I mean, that's a big deal. For someone to call you and say, hey, I lost my job, I need your help. You've done something right. You have been top of mind with them. You have been there along the way. You congratulated them on the new jobs. You congratulated them on the milestones that are happening in their life. And something devastating, an event happens and they need your help. I'd be willing to bet you that they didn't call you and say, hey, I need you to come out and sell my house. We really need to get top dollar. We'd like to, but we're calling because we got to relocate out of state. We lost our job. We need your help. Anybody else ever had someone buy or sell? Or sell, I suppose, based on losing a job?
Oh, not losing a job.
Would you like to share that?
Oh, sure, I thought we were still on.
No, go ahead.
My bad. No, I just had a client who, she bought a house. She had an accident, and Richard Schwartz got her. Like $60,000-$70,000. So she wanted to use that money to purchase a house.
Gotcha.
So
That's, yeah, absolutely. That could be an event, found money. That goes back down to, we haven't got that here.
no, she didn't die.
So that's back to the found money. So traditionally, when someone dies, right, oftentimes, yeah, right. She didn't die, but she got 60 grand. So does everybody understand about the change in income? Someone loses their job. So if you had 100 people, unfortunately, you wouldn't want this, but let's say that you were the Mercedes-Benz guy, Cameron. There's 2 cameras. Raise your hand. There's 2 cameras, look at that. But let's say you were the Mercedes-Benz guy and their headquarters is right here and they're doing massive layoffs. And you're the reload person, Terry, and 100 of them lost their jobs. And then someone calls you and says, hey, I want to go out there and test the market. Who are you calling back first? It becomes humorous by the end of this class, but this is what we have to ask ourselves every day. We get so caught up in the, we've all heard this, right? I've got a client that's, I got an investor. Raise your hand if you've got investors. Yeah, I've got an investor. If I can find them the right deal, you guys have heard this, but you're not smiling, you're lying, right? Like, come on. I've got an investor, he wants to spend $5 million. And if I can find him the right deals, he's gonna buy with me. Then you bank your whole pipeline. Yeah, makes you feel good. But what's the motivation there? Because if it's such a great deal, wouldn't you? Could be. All right, we'll talk about relocation and then we'll go on a break. We've already done most of it with Terry in the back. Why are they so motivated though? What's the event going on? Why are they so motivated?
So I had a client who was looking on the west side of town around Douglasville, we looking at houses for him there. But next thing you know, he got a new job over near Swanee.
Yeah.
So boom, changed everything, set up a whole new location search.
Yeah.
He wanted to be closer to work.
Be closer to work. That's exactly right. But again, it comes back to on the relocation side, the event that's happening. They got a job, but relocation could be all kinds of different reasons. Relocation could be relocating to be closer to grandkids. But what is the event that's who said the grandkids thing? Okay, but what's the event going on? What keeps them in the transaction when interest rates are high, prices drop? And traditionally, maybe the grandkids, depending on the cycle of life, maybe more the back end, therefore they might be price conscious because it might be the last big check they ever get for retirement. So what keeps them in the deal here?
Well, selling their home is going to give them the money and they've got, they've paid off all their mortgage because they're an older retired couple. So they just want to be closer where they can get more. The motivation is geographic, not financial.
Sure. Okay. So let's walk through that for a second. What's the house worth?
That worked a while. Probably 500 grand, 600 grand.
So if they got an offer, so if they put it on the market and they got an offer for 350, would they sell it? Why not?
Well, they want to get the market value of the home,
Ah,
but finances as far
Gotcha.
as the interest rates,
uh-huh.
right, not being slightly off,
Yeah,
that's not gonna be a big deal.
but it could be a big deal to the buyer that's buying their home that can pay 10 to 15% less because of the payment, right?
Could be.
Yeah. So if they got 350 and they wouldn't take it.
At 400 grand, if they found the house they loved, they might take it, yeah.
So do you see what I'm saying here is we got to keep asking these questions. Versus if this person was wanting to buy or sell and you were helping a family with a divorce, who are you calling back first? Does that make sense? And then we have to say, how do we do it 100 times over?
I have a different kind of relocation.
Yeah, go ahead.
Situation, not with grandchildren. So, and this was just a personal thing. My parents lived in a house. They couldn't live by themselves any longer, so I moved in. But we had to sell their house.
Why?
We needed the money
Why'd you need the money?
to pay the caregivers. Because if not, there were no caregivers, because they're not gonna work for her.
See,
And yeah, I mean,
We've
it's like,
gotta
we
keep
had X
asking
amount of
questions.
months left, X amount of. Like a couple of months left, like, you know, of money to pay, and then it's like, then they're gone.
Sure.
So it had to go.
yeah, I mean,
I mean, this,
but the critical thing here, as we move through the second half and her having the class, is that we've got to ask a question beyond the question we don't want to ask. Find that place where you get butterflies in your stomach. For those of you that are non-confrontational, find that place where you're uncomfortable. The next question is the question that you're gonna qualify your sellers and buyers. It's that very next question. Right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that most of this, like, anything could be, kick you out of the event, right? Even on a relocation.
Sure.
So you try to get the deal killers out of the way, let's say. So in the event we don't find a house, you know, when you try to relocate, is there a chance you decide to lease for a year and wait till the market gets better and things like that? That'll kick them out of the deal right there.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think what you're trying to do is just try to get the deal killer questions out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. You get those, because if we're pre-qualifying, so I'll give you a little history myself. So over 500 homes sold before I built a team and got out of production. And on my listing presentation, I had an 87% close rate, which means that 87% of the time, if I walked in the door and asked you to sign a contract, I'd get the contract signed 87% of the time. And people would always say, oh my gosh, why were you so good at your listing presentation? I wasn't. I was great at pre-qualifying. I mean, I'm talking about pre-qualify. I didn't go to listing presentations. I went to pick up signatures. Because I already knew so much about those sellers, because I had asked so many questions. Back to your point, is that by the time I walked in the door, I knew there was nothing left. It was just meeting me and making sure that I was a human and signing a contract. They already knew what we did, they already knew how we did it, already knew all the landmines, like you're talking about there, where they were buried, how to handle them. And to be frank, if they weren't overcomable, I didn't go. Because I can handle those over the phone. Because if something like that happened and somebody said, well, if we can't sell this for blank, we'll just rent it. Great, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send you rental comps. Anybody ever had a seller say, if I can't sell it, I'll just rent it? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, anybody other than me? Anybody want a strategy to put that to bed really quickly? Send them a list of all the rental comps right away. Great idea. I think we should approach it from a rental perspective as well, just in case we can't sell it. I'm gonna go ahead and send you all the rental comparisons. So that way, in the event we can't get the price that you're asking, we're prepared to rent the house. Oh, you know, I don't know. Wait a minute, whoa, you said you wanted to rent it. What happened? It's a quick way to do that. All right, we're gonna take a 10 minutes, okay with everybody? Yeah, take a 10-minute break and then we'll get started again.
Everything else is. But think about it. How many families? That are have to be supposed to use that. That's right. So like, they, we stop. You live. At some point, they're freaking That's one example. If there are multiple kids doing the same thing in that area of town. I think that is. a pretty big Yeah. So, activities or hobbies. Every time at school, I mean, there's plenty of families out there. Baseball and that. It's a difficult subject, Watson, but I get it. Yeah. I mean, today, like, family is doing a East Gossip every weekend, and they live. Yeah. At some point, there's gonna be a break. Sure. I would need to come after. And, so. You're right. It could be, but what we have after would be the mindset. Let's go. Wow. Yeah. Okay, great. Doesn't matter how much time. We don't have time of money. But if I think it's $30,000 here, that would everything doubles here. And then you put on the table, they need to get my kids that next time to watch. Buy a house in East Scotland. Right. Here, anywhere closer, kind of stuff like this too. And to your point, it is both what we have to do, and sometimes it's also helping that. The person that naturally really that we try home today is that how many times you really have one meeting. So you keep letting work around because we don't have 10 or 20 or 30. That makes sense. Yeah. I appreciate that. Oh. What? That they
I said this has.
Yeah, just my first name. Let's just say. Where's the church? Well. Right. Don't do it. Yeah, we want to get that. Because you're being asked to say no. I use politics. You're like, I hope it's anything. I don't but I can say it's got you've got to do it. You've got to
I got rid of the cars. We must find out. Sitting all day long. What is Keller Williams? What is the layer? I need a lot. Numbers still there. It's selfie, you get the water. Yeah. Yeah. If you have 10 people, there's a sign there. This is. Fine. He said, look, we were at like 20 or 22, let's say, and I had. I mean, they needed to be. and I was wasting energy. That's one thing that I think is really important is customer service. Every single Thursday for the past 2 years, we call all our existing clients, we'll sell our clients, we have some call. And you try to find it really quickly, whether or not you have a motivated seller. Because when you know, you make a commitment to list of home, you call them every single Thursday, you're gonna be. Because they're gonna be, hey, just wanted an update, we have 7 showings, 2 contracts, we should be under contract today. Or is it, hey? You're dancing in the room of lights. You listen back to it. What? You in mind. That makes sense. But it all comes down to like stop listening to your dollar. Where there's 2 listings in a day, you're allowed to let go of 1 deal. Yeah. But you can't do that. Well, go out and take it. Okay, which one of these? $1? That's great. Nobody wants to do the same piece for on the shelf and volume. They're all business. These are things stay on track. Right. So don't worry, it is in your. They are acting as sitting on it, right? Even the less money you actually pay. Well, you don't know, like, what is someone gonna tell you? Whatever shoots. Next month. That's. Are you? They say, get your. But you're not losing the stay outside. It's not. It's not. Yeah, we don't. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. Wow, it's making it, and then. Actually, I'm like. But really, just doesn't be your. Yeah. I love. I feel like having them all. But I have. Man, what's behind it? Take your laundry to soon they go. Oh, do you? Are you?
Yeah, so that's.
Then I hit the best tab. I would do
It looks good on paper, but that. Yeah. Yeah. Mixed in. All together.
Right.
There you go. Bad coming.
But you still does a great job. New Legion. What? What?
This question is because, sometimes I'm not doing something better. Did you get that one?
Yeah.
After I was getting. Probably not.
Are you guys ready to get started? What questions do we have so far? We haven't had time to go out there and talk bad about me and all that good stuff, you know? What questions do we have so far?
Sure. Dustin. When you know, let's say, you have friends, they're a couple, they're living in an 8,000 square foot house. When this house dies, you know that house is way too big for this one. Sure. How do you make that call and position yourself to be the agent without sounding like you're money hungry? Like, how do you even put the idea in their head, do you want to sell your house?
Well, I think that the question is, I think the question is not,
You don't want to do that.
I think the question is not how do we call and become the agent of choice for us. I think if we have to ask that question, it's too late. I think what we have to ask ourselves is, have we earned the right for that opportunity to come our way? Does that make sense? So raise your hand if you're taking bold. Raise them high. I've got a bold shirt on. Come on, guys. So that's great. So when we're in bold, we talk about how do we communicate with our database? What's the acronym? That's right. That's how we do it systematically. But how do we get into conversation? What's a systematic? So when we're using FOR, what does S stand for? What does O stand for? What does R stand for? What does D stand for? All right, so that's a great way, Matt, to stay in business with your database because it's a natural conversation. Now, there's a different opportunity there. If you've earned the right to be in business with someone and you've done for time and time and time again, and a spouse passes away, you've earned the right to call and say, I'm sorry for your loss. You earn the right to send, well, you can always send flowers or a card because it's authentic and genuine. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But if you haven't, then you gotta make that forward call, even though you know that's going on. You're still gonna have to make that forward call. You're gonna have to let them break it to you, even though you might know it, because you haven't earned the right beforehand for it to come up to the surface. Does that make sense?
You call it forward and you don't ask, you wait for them to ask you.
Plus, it don't have,
Well, they know it.
Bold tells us at the bottom, right? It tells us that if we've done our job, the 90% of the time, it will naturally go to real estate. They know what you do. Promise, they've been watching your Instagram, okay? All the houses and the balloons and all that stuff. They know what you do if you've done your job to earn that right. Does that make sense? Because you're gonna ask things like, how's your family? You're gonna ask things like, how's your job going? How's work going? I saw online you got a new job, Matt. Now remember, this is your database. This is not expired. This is not a withdrawal. This is not a personal owner. This is your data bank. This is the most valuable piece of your real estate world. So take a moment and go online and check them out. Make sure everything's going well. Find those events that are happening in their life. Hey, I saw your daughter just graduated high school. Hey, I saw your son just got done with college. Hey, I thought you just had a new baby. That's the family part of it. Occupation. Hey, I saw you just switched job with a relocation. Man, how's that going? Hey, I saw you just got back from Disney World with your kids. Whoa. that was a cool trip. Because once you go through that, if they're not just crazy, they're probably gonna ask you what? How you're doing? Well, actually, it's funny you ask, everything's really great, real estate's going well, and family's good, and blah, 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 blah. 9 times out of 10, it will lead to real estate if you've earned the right to be in business with that person. We have a team of 11 in the Roswell Market Center, and when new agents come on board, the most challenging thing is their first 6 months of calling their database. Because they say, well, can I call my database and ask for business? Yes and no. You can call them and tell them you have a new job. You can call them that you have a new career. You can call them and tell them that you're in real estate. But the first call is not where you're gonna get, yeah, you'll get a pop, yeah, you'll get 2, 3, 4 deals, depending on the size of your database. From the email that says, hey, I'm with a new team or a new brokerage, or an email that says, I'm with real estate, Keller Williams. You may get a pop from that, but your big long-term business, your top of mind moment, you're gonna have to call through that whole database and earn the right to make that call back for real estate. Because if you haven't talked to your database, if you're sitting in the room here, better question, who here loves to talk to their database? You smile, right? I don't, I'll admit it right now, raise your hand if you don't like talking to your database. There it is. It's okay.
I didn't like talking to my mom.
That's a different story. But let's think about that for a second. 50% of the room doesn't want to talk to their database. Why? Why?
My problem is I think I know them already. Oh, they bought a house back there and I'm looking, or already there.
Uh-huh.
I know them already.
I've got kids.
I know.
Right?
Yeah. I find that I call them, especially Monday.
Geez,
I don't
This,
want,
this class, this is good. Let's do this.
but they never answer the phone. You're always just leaving a message, so you feel like they don't want to hear from you.
Do they not want to hear from you? Or do they not need you?
That could be part of it, and that's why I send them some emails occasionally and so forth about their goals, but they don't want to talk, so you just
People communicate in different ways.
communicate with them as much, so it's not feeling like you're, overcalling.
Is anybody else planning on being in the real estate business more than just today, right? Okay, good, perfect. All right, just making sure. See, it's a long-term game. This is your database, your data bank. So you're right. Go ahead.
I was in a sales occupation for 40-something years.
What'd you do?
Sold insurance. So in terms of reaching out to people, I would always call people. I didn't send cards. I called people on their birthdays. And I called them, in the chauvinist that I am, always selling mail. I call them on their wife's birthday to remind them.
Wow.
And I,
Okay, you know what? Everyone should write that down. Say that again. That's impressive.
and it was amazing, the responses every now and then, it'd be. Thanks for calling.
If you sent me that note a week before, I would send you real estate business even though I'm licensed. That is incredible. Holy smokes.
I got a great story, but we don't have time today, but some guy had forgotten his wife's birthday, but he didn't return my call until 2 days later.
So I'll give you guys a little nugget. A friend of mine gave me this out of Chicago. His name's Lee Marcus. He's with That Properties. And every year, actually, Valentine's Day is coming up. So this is perfect. So how many people in the room would like to do an event, to target their database without costing any money? All right, cool, me too. So what he did was he had all the staff, they had 6 staff, there were about 225 transactions a year, average sales price was about $725. Anybody can do that quick math, it's a lot of money. And so I saw something on their Instagram. And it was, hey guys, for those of you that forgot about a reservation for your wife or your partner for Valentine's Day, we have these restaurants available. We have 5 to 6 reservations per. So what he did was he took all 5 and 6 of his staff and went to all 5 of the top restaurants. And each staff member put their name and information in for a reservation slot. So they posted online that, hey guys, for those of you who forgot, we have these 25 reservations available at the top restaurants in Chicago. That were booked up for months in advance. He said most of the time, all 25 of them were gone within the first 30 minutes of the post.
Wow.
Cost nothing. I know, when he told me that, I was like, and imagine you're a guy or a girl and you're a partner and you forgot about this. And you look really good for, you know, your realtor made you look good. You're like, oh yeah, honey, I made this reservation months ago. Not really. That's a great point there. I guess we digress, right? Events. Okay, events.
Yes.
We're back to the events. So, how do you guys feel we're doing with the momentum? Where do you think we're missing? Are there any gaps that we need to fill in? Reese, I haven't heard much from you back there. Just digesting.
Going good so far.
Where are we going with this? Are we getting clarity around this? I know this seems monotonous. We're gonna accelerate the second half of the class because it's all gonna be numbers based. The reason I put that on the second half of the class is because if I put it in the front, everyone leaves at the break. So, but are we getting clear on why it's important to ask the qualifying questions?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. I was talking with, remind me your name, talking with Christine about something, and it really hit me, and I wrote it down on paper over here. Who in the room has, fired a client? All right, let me rephrase that. Who in the room has wanted to fire a client before?
Yeah.
Wow, that girl scared of it, okay. How do you do that? How do you say no to someone? And it doesn't have to be fired, that might be an abrasive word. Who in here has decided who has made a strong decision not to either work with someone now or in the future because of motivation? Would you like to share with everyone, like, how did you do that? Like, this is the, you know, when we get into real estate, what do they tell you in real estate? Who's your potential clients?
Everybody.
Everybody. You go to any major corporation, and if you said that as a chief marketing officer, you'd be fired on the spot. If you went to Nike and said, who's our demographic, and you said everybody, they would say the door's right there. But in real estate, we're talking to everyone. Because they teach you, you know, how many people prefer to live indoors.
Everyone.
Everyone. And what happens when everyone comes at you? And they think that too. How do you gently say, I do not gently say, I don't know your personality style, this could be interesting. How do you say no for now?
I think it just depends, but the last client I fired, I mean.
Okay, there's his personality, ladies and gentlemen, he's firing people.
Yeah, that one was just a little bit more rough because it was like her budget, I think was like 170 and under. She didn't want a townhome. She only wanted to stand alone and she wanted like a backyard. It was just a little unrealistic. And I think when we do our presentation, we try to set those expectations. So we're saying, okay, you know, what is your ideal monthly payment? Okay, I always go by monthly payment over price because interest rates fluctuate. Sure. So now we find out, you know, what she wants to pay, the price point, the area. So I start sending her houses that I'm finding off market. Now, since they're off market, there's no, you know, pictures on Zillow or, you know, wherever people like to look things up. So I'm like, hey, you just gotta trust me. Like we've done, you know, renovations, paint, backsplash, or whatever the case may be, but this house is off market. So at least we can get close to the price point you want. Then we'll take the few $1,000s and do the upgrades. And it was just like every time I would send her something, she would just jump the gun like, I wouldn't live there. Would you live there? And I'm like, a lot of people say they wouldn't live in the house that I bought, but you know, now that I bought it, everyone said, oh, you got such a great deal. So it's mindset and perspective. And I think it just got to the point where the last time she was like, oh, you know, I hate this house. Don't send me anymore. I'm getting another realtor. And I was just like, you know what? You do that. Have a great day. Because I just couldn't take it anymore. It was like we were working so hard. And if you're not in tune with the vision, then it's just not gonna work.
What was her motivation?
She kept saying she needed more space and she wanted her own place. And she was tired of renting because the rents were going so high, but I just don't feel like her motivation is high.
Doesn't follow here, does it?
Correct.
Right, but he decided to get out of business with that person. Anybody else afraid to say no to their client? Okay, you can admit it. No? No? No?
I've done it, I've met with him, but I got said he was a appraiser, right? He's an appraiser, and, we go into this house and it's in bad shape. You couldn't get an investor to buy it.
Right.
But he wanted something like 500,000 for it. I said, where did you get that? From? If you're an appraiser.
Yeah.
Oh, way over here, and this, I said, that's like 2 miles away.
Right.
In this neighborhood right here, look at all these houses, none of them were going above this price. Oh, I think I can get that. Well, look, I'd rather tell you the truth and be honest with you. But I think I'm not the right agent to help you.
Yeah.
Because I do not see how you get that.
Yeah.
Most
Okay, that's right.
sell this house, just went down, they're gonna buy for $10,000 less in years. Why would they buy this house? Yeah, it just, and he was a pretty sure, I couldn't believe he actually thought.
Mr. and Mrs. Seller, unfortunately, I don't think we're the right fit for each other,
Yeah.
but I got a list of 3 agents that specialize in overpriced listings I can bring you. I mean,
But that's really good.
I mean, you laugh, but we kind of want to say that sometimes. You know, they asked us over.
That's Joe.
Yeah, they asked us over to list their property and then they want to tell us how to do our job. It's like, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, who's paying who a commission here? I'm not paying you a commission, you're paying me a commission. Why am I even here? But it's how do we learn how to say no to that seller? How do we learn to say no for now, not forever? You told people no before?
Yeah,
Yeah, how'd that go?
well, I'll just find somebody else then. I said, yeah, hey, that's fine.
Yeah,
I don't have any hard feelings. It's just I can't work with you. These are unrealistic, I'm trying to explain. You know, there's a saying, you can't tell the smartest person in the room anything. So
Yeah.
sometimes you just gotta but you are the
yeah,
one and. Find somebody else. Or do it on your own.
yeah.
I said that too.
Well, I mean, I think it comes down to standard. I'd like for everybody to write this down. Standards, write that down on your page. I mean, this all circles back to how do we take 100 listings in a year? So can anybody give me an example of standards? You're doing a real estate transaction. Let's specifically, let's target listings here, because that's what the class is about today. So let's talk about standards. Can anybody give me a standard that they can hold when you're going to a listing?
I'm only gonna, I'm not taking less percentage than what I'm telling you.
Okay, right, write that down. What's another standard we can hold?
That price.
No, that
That was commission.
commission.
Oh, that was a commission?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha, okay, commission, you can write that down too?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were, that's right, good job. I don't know when my wife's birthday is, so you're gonna have to, we'll have to figure that out later.
Buy some insurance.
I could buy, yeah, sure.
I won't do less than 6 months for this thing.
Okay, terms, write that down, that's awesome. Anybody else?
I don't lie.
Say again?
Ethics, I don't lie.
Okay, so that's standard, so a dishonest seller? Yeah, you can write that down, that's great. Actually, a really good point. Imagine walking into a door and they're pricing it where you want it, they're giving you the commission that you want, the house is in great shape. And then you find out they're a liar. Do you have the courage to walk away from that?
Yeah.
But,
I don't know if this is more of a boundary, I guess, than a standard, like say your sellers want to call you after midnight.
yeah,
Maybe set
oh,
some
yeah.
sort of a boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, you can put expectations. That'd be a great standard. How about condition? Anybody ever walked into a listing presentation and once you were done with it, you felt like you had to take your clothes off and like burn them? Like the house was like so gross. You're like, man, should I list this house? Yeah, I'm listing this house. Just take a front shot, you know, you heard that one. Take a front shot. Do not go in the house. On the MLS private remarks, go in at your own risk.
Yeah.
You need to sign 42 documents, press hard 3 copies, you know, make sure if something happens, we're not liable here. What about accessibility? You might ever sold a house with a day sleeper? A day sleeper, they're like, think overnight worker, somebody that goes to work at 8 PM and wakes up or goes and gets home at 5 AM. It's a challenge. It depends on how many deals you want to do. You might not do that.
I think that's gonna be
Could be.
Is they, the times that they're available to check the house and not people want to see it.
They gotta make income. Right. Do they want to switch careers before?
I mean, there's a lot.
You're gonna have a lot of the time that you want.
Sacrifice. And they all get a couple of days off, so you've got those
Yeah.
days to go sleep late. Wake them up early and go out at 4 o'clock, you know.
Here's another one. How about geographic location for your office?
Radius.
See, you all have standards, you just don't know it yet. The question is, where are they starting and stopping? And I'll show you right now, how many people would sell a house around this area for $500,000 at 3% commission? Raise your hand. I might be giving away a listing today, everyone. We need to raise some hands. How many people would go list a house for $500,000 this afternoon at a full commission? You guys want one? How many people, and this is important that you participate because we're going to show our standards right now. How many people would go out today, this afternoon, and list a house for $250,000 at a full commission? Okay, almost everyone. How many people would go out and sell a house today for $10,000 at 3% commission? You see the difference? But that's an example of standards. And that's okay. Everyone's at a different place in their lives. Everyone's at a different place in your career. Yeah, right? It's a $300 fee. That's what you need to know. And the brokerage takes half. Not here. But you see, we've already got our standards. The question is, what are they? And are you writing them down? Back to a team perspective, Reese, is that when I started getting out of production, in order for me to get out of production, I had to start raising my standards on the minimum price point I was willing to use or willing to work. And everything else went to the team. Started out at 500, then it went to 750, then it went to 1.5, and then it went to 2 million. And basically anything under that goes to the team. But it's not because I don't want to go do the business, it's because I'm out here teaching right now. And that's what's important to me. You guys are important. Does that make sense? Let's play another standard game. We'll do 1 second. Let's play one more standard game. Who would list $1 million house in Norcross at a full 6% commission today? Ooh, got more hands. Let's see if I can get everybody back there. Who would do a $5 million house in Buckhead at a full commission? All right, now we got participation. Let's think. Who would list a house in Douglasville for $1 million at a 6% commission? All right, so I still got some hands. That's good. Who would list a house in Carrollton for $1 million at a full commission? Like we all don't know where it's at. Go east if you want. I'm running highway. I've been running down I-20 for a couple of months.
Say they don't know.
How many people would go to Birmingham? No, you can't fly. Yes, you have to drive there to service it. How many people would go to Birmingham for $1 million listing? So I want everyone to look around the list when we first started.
License there.
That too. I'll get licensed. Reciprocal.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a referral.
You see what I'm saying? We already have standards in place. You just haven't written them down.
Well, I mean, it depends too. If you want to do the best job possible for that client,
That's
you don't know that area. And you better refer in that business to
Well,
what it does.
hold on a second. How long you been in business?
2 years.
Yeah, well, take a brand new agent that has no deals. They are going to Douglasville. They are walking in that house and they're taking that list. Now they have to be walking out going, I have no idea what I'm doing. But they are going to get that, make no mistake, that is not going through their head. I got a new license, I don't want to get a bad job. No, they're like millions, 3%. Hey, how many years? Well, we've been around for 100 years, you know. And how much your license? 1 hour. We all have some kind of standard. The question is, are you putting it in place? Now, as the market is going straight up, which we saw in the last 2 to 3 years, our standards could be really high. We only want to work with the people we want to work with. no one want to work at a certain price point, then all of a sudden interest rates pop up into the sixes. And then all of a sudden, maybe we're working with a few people we weren't working with before. Maybe our geographic area is bigger. When I first started, I was on a team for 3 years. And then when I broke out on my own as an individual agent, I did 66 transactions in my first 12 months. I didn't think that I had the experience to sell north of $500,000. So I targeted the business that other people weren't going after. It was Lawrence, it was 2013, 14, and 15. It was Lawrenceville, Millburn, Duluth, this whole corridor right here. Douglasville, Lithia Springs, Bremen, Carrollton. I didn't take any listing appointments Monday through Friday. I prospected all day Monday, I prospected all day Tuesday, I prospected all day Wednesday, I prospected all day Thursday. I dropped off pre-listing packages on Friday, and I had 5 listing appointments on Saturday, and I had 5 listing appointments on Sunday.
Wow.
Except I didn't know about this thing called a geographic standard. So 9 a.m., I'm in Douglasville. 11 a.m., I'm in Lawrenceville. 1 o'clock, I'm in Lithia Springs. I would zigzagging, but here's the thing though, for those newer agents in the room, I think it's important that we talk to everyone here is that make no mistake, making $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a 1 hour drive to and from, get in the car. Like, I'm just being honest with you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's how you learn and you can become a market expert in those areas. For those of you that have been in the business 5, 6, 7 years and you have a really big database, you might not make that drive, but don't deter the newer agent from that. I did 66 transactions. I would take 3 listings on a Saturday and sometimes 2. And what was great was that by the end of the Saturday, I had like 2 or 3 listing agreements signed. And I walked into Joe's house and Joe's like, yeah, I really don't know if I want to list that commission. I'm like, Joe, are we doing this or are we not, buddy? I got 3 signed today. I want to go home. Do you see the difference there? These are $200,000-$300,000 houses. But I was making 15 grand as a brand new agent on a Saturday. I was exhausted. I had a lot of car time, a lot of audiobooks, but boy, I was zigzagging across town. Now, maybe not. I don't have the time for that. I can't do that. But if I had to, I could. You see what I mean around standards? So the question I got to ask each and every one of you is, what is your standard? What is your standard that you're willing to hold that even if the money was millions, you would do it for free because you're not willing to do it? What's that standard? What's the standard you're willing to walk away with? So I'm going to give you guys an easy way to start out with a standard. I want you guys to draw a line, and below that, I want you to write these 3 things in the following order. Price, condition, and accessibility. So when I'm going to talk with a seller, once I have identified their event and I know they're selling, this is key. We're not going to forget this just because we're going to the listing presentation right now. Doesn't mean we're getting in the beginning. So when I go, I'm telling them the following: Mr. and Mrs. Seller, every single week, our staff, or if you're an individual agent yourself, we rank our listings, we give it a weighted score. We know that if you have a weighted score of 24 or better, your home is likely to sell within 21 to 30 days. And you want to put in there whatever the average days on market for that price point are. You can say 21 to 30. If you're in the million plus, it can be 60 to 90 now. If you're at 50 grand, it could be an hour, you know, whatever that is. And we say we do it on price, condition, and accessibility. Now, you can have a 10 and 1 and a 6 and other, but as long as we're at an 8 or better on an average, or 24 or more, we're going to be able to sell your home. Sound fair? So right now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you guys don't live in the house, meaning it's vacant. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how accessible would you say your house is? It's a 10. Congratulations, you just got a 10. All right. Number 2 is condition. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you decided not to do all of these things that we talked about, and that's okay. We can make up for that when it comes to the price. So we're going to give it a 6 or a 7. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, can I tell you what the issue is? What is it? Well, based on the price is more at 6. That puts you at like 21 or 22. So what would you like to do? Would you like to improve the price, or would you like to add more features and benefits to the house? See, those are standards. The question is, are you willing to hold them?
And what number should be the breaking point for the three?
We always did an average of 8 across all three, price, condition, accessibility.
24.
Most people say, well, what about motivation? Motivation's reflected in the price. Always. Questions around standards? Anybody got an example of a standard that they help?
I always tell people I want us to be in the market, not on the market.
Yeah.
And if it's overpriced, then I will recommend that they sell
Yeah.
because I don't want my sign, people, a lot of agents, a lot of people think an agent just wants their sign in the yard, but I want my sign there for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Because if it sits longer, then it looks as though I'm not doing my job,
Yeah.
and I will hold that line. I have.
Who here thinks that it's our job to get sellers world-class prices for their house? That's good. Yeah, when we get in these real estate transactions, no one in real estate school ever said your fiduciary is to set records. No, it's to help people through the process. And the more that we get true about this, that we're there as an advisor to walk them through the process. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand that you had a death in the family. I understand you want to net this number. But unfortunately, these are the steps that we need to take. I had a seller, a great long-time developer client, we were emailing back and forth. They have a one up in Duluth, I think. They were flipping, so we assigned it to one of our listing specialists, and he said, we started out at 489, we're down to 394. Your team's always been our best team. We'd like for you guys to take over listing. So I said, okay, great. So his business partner gets involved. And she says, hey, Dustin, we'd love for your team to sell it. But as long as we can net 400 after commissions, we'll list with you. Now remember, they're listed at 394. And they want us to raise the price 25 grand. A little crazy?
Yeah.
Probably. So at that point, I replied back. She goes, what is your strategy? And I replied back, I said, we're gonna reduce the price. They weren't happy with that. But why? How many agents in this room would take that listing and price it at 425? Depends on how new you are. I was a new agent, I would have done that. All day. But what's your standard? And those standards change. But you gotta be willing to hold those.
It's something you said earlier, kind of related to standards. At what point do you start to do the add to remove one listing?
Yeah, so I was telling her, when so I've had a coach since the first day I was in real estate. I've been in real estate for 10 years, 450, 30-minute coaching calls in my career. And one of the coaching calls was I had an issue with overpricing houses. Yeah, and what was happening is the market was kind of doing this. It wasn't really doing this, but it was kind of, this is like 11, 12, 13. It was kind of a weird market. We were a high inventory market. We were carrying a lot of inventory. And I was really listening at it. I mean, if you go to Pulse and you would put a price on a piece of paper, I would let you sign it. I mean, I was the king of overpriced listing. Just gonna be honest with you. That's how I ended up at 22, 24. Until my coach told me, he said, listen, here's the deal, this is a personal business. This is a business where we get into relationships with people and we help them with their most important asset, whether it be an investment or otherwise. He said, but it's still a business. Don't forget that. He said, Walmart doesn't get paid to keep their t-shirts on the rack. Say that again. Walmart does not get paid to keep its t-shirts on the rack. That is your inventory. You do not get a gold star for having the most inventory. And in fact, it actually costs you a tremendous amount of money. Because, Reese, when you talk about a team structure, if you're carrying 20 or 30 listings, you should have a whole new fresh set of listings every 30 to 45 days based on what your average days on market are. So if you have 15 listings, the average days on market is 41 days. Every 41 days, you should have a new set of 15 listings. Does that make sense? Well, I had 22, and my coach told me, he said, listen, we can't just fire them. You have to take 2 good listings and then you can let one go. So lead generate, so you don't have to tolerate. That makes sense? Is that what you were asking about? Yeah. All right. Let's finish this up. We'll pick out 2 or 3 more. All right, who said floor plan? Didn't leave. No?
Probably Terry.
Probably Terry. Okay, well, good job, guys. What about, let's do debt. This is probably one of the more popular ones. So is anybody in the crowd? And anybody sell, go ahead.
What I found on the floor plan was one of those things where, let's say you're elderly, you have some injuries, things like that. So you go from a two story to a 1 story, everything's on 1 level. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, so this is a cool one. Give me the event.
Knee surgery.
You've been in my class, man. He's rude. I mean, he's like, but that's so critical to remember. I know agent after agent after agent that have been in business forever, and they will say that this is an event. It is not. It is the event that happened before the event that makes this an event.
That's right.
Your parents don't get up one day and go, "Yeah, I can't get out of that chair. We're gonna go sell our house. Let's go." It might happen over time, or they might have a fall. Anybody ever have a parent that fell? Nobody was home. That's another reason to relocate. Single parent, you live out of state, you need to get them in somewhere where they can be monitored. That's a huge thing. But it's typically the impetus is an event.
So you're talking about true motivation versus motivation.
Oh, yeah. And that's what leads to the 100 transactions is, okay, so you want to downsize. Why?
Cause they had a stroke.
Yeah, that's an event.
Yeah, but about.
Yeah, I mean, that's an event that happens. I'm a fundamental believer that if you just believe downsizing is an event, you could go out of business. You've got to dig behind what's the event that's creating the downsizing.
You gotta sell that.
Yeah, you gotta get there. Why is your mom, why does that parent need that single level? Is it a preference thing? Anybody ever listed, been in a house where they turned like a dining room or a bed or a non-bedroom on the same level? Yeah. They didn't sell, did they? They moved it down and stopped inviting guests over. Sorry.
Yeah.
That makes sense? So floor plan, it's a good one, but it could be an event. It's gotta be an event. We gotta keep digging, qualifying these questions. Who are you? Why are you doing this?
There's a cause and event.
Yeah. It's an event behind an event. What about debt? Let's talk about that. Anybody in the room done a transaction where the event that calls the transaction, the listing that was taken, someone passed away in the family?
Doing it right now.
Doing one right now? Okay, who wants to share their experience?
We closed one back in the summer where the husband had died 10 years ago. And the mother had died 3 years ago. And the 3 kids had been sitting around for 3 years trying to figure out what to do with the house. And they finally realized that they really needed to sell the house.
Yeah.
Both parents.
I think that's so critical that you brought that up. So the husband died 10 years ago, then the wife died 3 years ago, and then the kids decide all of a sudden they need to sell.
Well, one of them had been using it for storage more than anything else, but they finally said, this could go. They finally came to realize.
So qualifying question, you with me? Did the debt create the sale?
Not really.
So what's the event?
It created the opportunity for the other.
Right, so what's the event that calls the commission? What's the event that calls them to call you?
I think
Okay.
it was property taxes.
Okay, there. That's the event. Let's not get caught up in the debt. The debt led to it, but those property taxes.
They carry it cost.
100%. Does that make sense? So a better example is when in the process does someone call to list a home after the death of the family? When do we typically get that call?
6 months to a year after it hasn't.
Okay.
Or when something impractical has not made a change for a year after someone passes.
Okay, has anybody else got a call at a different time frame? You're on the investor side, you probably deal with this quite a bit.
The listing agent is actually the surviving spouse,
Uh-huh.
and our home was left to,
Huh?
left their stepdaughter.
Yeah.
So the person passed away. So in cancer died.
Right. Gotcha. So the listing agent is the surviving spouse. And how long has it been since the partner passed away? Okay, so a month or two. So we got 6 months, we got a month or two. Not to be morbid here, but like, do they call you on the way to the funeral? No.
But right after.
Right after, maybe. You might be attending. That might be a moment where you're top of mind because of the board and you're there. But see, we gotta understand, why do they call? Here's another question, do they typically call before or after probate?
They call it, you have to tell them, you gotta wait till.
See, we're asking qualifying questions here. But what's a question that if someone called and said, hey, my mother has passed away, we need to sell a home, what are some questions that we can ask to qualify them? If now is the opportunity, but they still have multiple steps before I get called.
Yeah, you visit it or not. Yeah.
One at a time, so
Oh, did she leave a will?
perfect. Who else?
Have you gone through probate?
Right of survivorship, what else?
To be clear, probate.
Have you cleared probate? Are there any other heirs that need to make a decision on this sale? Yeah, we all been there. Yeah,
The probate would handle.
yeah, we listened, we got your number, yeah, well, 2 of my heirs live out of state and don't have a cell phone. Kind of go for a hunt,
Oh, they're gonna mess that.
you know,
Off the grid.
and we just got one passed away and they had 9 kids. Now we gotta get all out of there.
That happens on LLC too.
Oh my gosh, like. Again, that's not gonna be closing this year. You're sitting there, it's like $1 million property, you're like, how much are flights? I'm gonna be like, Delta, Texas. But those are the qualifying questions that can keep you there. Now, here's the other cool part, if they don't know the answers, can we be a resource for this? Oh, yeah. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, one of the services who provides, get you in touch with a state attorney that handles stuff like this. You shouldn't be alone through this process. Would you like it if I made an introduction to you? Does that make sense? But is this a motivation? Yeah, but we gotta ask clarifying questions around that, because at the end of the day, someone passing is not just an event. For it to happen, there has to be something that leads up to it. It could be, they can't afford it. That's a great point. My other favorite one is, you know, you got 3 heirs, someone's passed away. And all of a sudden, you know, things are going slow, and all of a sudden it's like fire sale. You find out that one of the 3 heirs bought a beach house with the money that they didn't even have yet. That happens. Or they're installing a pool that they financed, because when mom's house sells, they'll be able to pay it off in cash. But are these qualified questions here? Had a guy one time, it's a different topic, but had a guy one time that we were selling his house right 5 or 6 years ago. We were selling his house, and I think we got him an offer. I think we were listed at like 500. I think we got him an offer for like 450. I knew his equity position in the house. I knew the house he was buying because we were helping him. I knew that he had everything lined up, so we get this offer for 450, and I'm like, Bill, you need to take this, right? Like, this is the best, as good as we're gonna get. Don't want to do anything to the house, you don't want to paint it, you just need to take this offer. No. I can't take anything less than 40. Hey, Bill, why? I just got a net for you. Hey, Bill, kept talking back and forth. Finally said, you know what, Bill? I'm done. We've got the house you want under contract, we've got a price that fits your down payment, plus some running money. Like, what am I missing here? Well, Dustin, I put a down payment on a boat. And the extra 30 to 40 grand I needed for the boat down payment. See, we gotta ask qualifying questions. We gotta keep asking, because this is our time and money, ladies and gentlemen. You wanna do 100 listings in a year? Keep asking the question. What about schools? Do schools real quick, and then we're gonna jump into some numbers.
How old are the kids?
Huh?
I guess, good call. Like, you wanna know how old the kids are.
Right. Sure.
God bless.
Why is it important for your child to be in that area?
Right, right.
Yeah, I can ask the quality of school.
Yeah, I would say so. How about your kids are moving from grade school to middle school?
Yeah, and the middle school's bad.
Could be that. So would a stellar, let's think about the event there. So the event is the new school. Is there a deadline on that typically?
Yes. It's sort of kinda, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you want to be at the beginning of the school year, but you don't.
That's right. So would we say that we would want to start helping that seller list and sell their home when the kid's in third grade? No?
For middle school.
Yeah, no, yeah, so they're going to middle school. And you want to pick the right middle school. So would you say we start that process in third grade?
No,
Okay, let me give you these.
Fourth grade.
Would we start an empty nester process when they're in 10th grade?
Yeah.
No. So where are we at in the process with the school? So one of the qualifying questions might be, they call you, Matt, and they say, hey, we want to probably sell our house and move because Billy is going into middle school and we want to go ahead and get the new house in the new school. What's a qualifying question?
Oh, is that?
What, yeah, oh, Billy, what grade is he in? Well, Billy was born last week.
Good news, you have some time.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll see you in 5 years, thanks, Mike. No, but you wouldn't believe, people need, for those of you.
That's an overachiever.
Yeah, Billy's an overachiever. But I mean, if you really consider it, how many have been in the business more than 10 years? Raise your hand. Okay, wow, okay. Well, believe it or not, there was a time where we would go to closing and there wouldn't be enough money to pay a commission. Real deal. So we have qualifying questions, I call it PTSD, where we ask them, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what do you owe on the house? I'm making sure they have the equity in the home to A, buy a home, but B, to pay us. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, how much do you want to list your home for when we come out tomorrow? I know someone has passed in the family. Well, we want to list it for 500. Okay, great. I understand. And we'd like to respect the wishes of your mom. Is there a mortgage on the home? Yes. How much do you guys owe? $498,000. There's a math problem here. See, we got to ask these questions, and especially right now, speaking to this class and specifically this market, that's more critical than ever. There are folks out there that have bought a house at $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. They bought it with 5% down. Would we say the market may or may not have shifted, give or take 5% over the past 90 days, possibly in some places? That could happen. Depends on where you're at. So we got to ask those qualifying questions. I remember in 2011 and 12, when I first got in, I was actually helping people find ways to take the negative equity of $8,000 to $10,000 and put it on a personal credit card. 100%. But they were in an adjustable rate mortgage that was adjusting. So their payment was going from $700 a month to $3,500 a month. Couldn't afford it. So what? They would have to sell the house and take a $8,000 credit card payment, which was only like $200 or $300 a month, and go rent for $1,500. $1,700 is less than $3,500. It seems strange, but it's what you have to do financially. And people did it over, and I don't think people sold a lot of Doug's. I don't think people stopped taking closings, checks to closing for me until 15, maybe kind of leaking into 16. There were still people bringing checks at closing to get that sold. All right. Okay, are we good here?
yeah,
We go on the line. Who wants to know how?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody good with that?
yeah.
All right, cool. Okay. So
this. So here's the event. Down here is the source. Down here is the sale. So this is the buck. The event leads to the source leads to the sale. So sources, first time owner, expired, withdrawn, database, SOI. Each one of those people have an event in their life that is leading to them coming out from a certain source. So we identify what is the event and where did they come from. This is what. That's why. And this is where. And down here there's how. So this is how right here in the middle. Once we've identified the event, once we've identified the sourcing, and the reason why I took so much time at the beginning to really clarify, I was telling Joel this, is that has anybody bought a new car recently? Yeah? What kind of car did you buy?
Audi.
An Audi, okay, and what'd you have before that? A Mustang. So when you bought that Audi, did you start to notice all the time there were Audis everywhere?
No, not really.
Well, there's a lot of Audis out there, right? Who bought a car recently or in the last few years and realized they're everywhere? But really, you just started noticing.
Right.
See, that's what we had to do. We had to rewire our brain today on what was an event going on in someone's life. And what's really fun about it is when you leave here today and you're going and scrolling through social media or you're talking to your database, you're going to start seeing these events. And they were always there, by the way.
Right.
Now you're going to start noticing them. Now you're going to start thinking, okay, boom. Now you're boom, right? And I would challenge everyone when they leave here today, it's going to be exciting and scary at the same time. Who here has a pipeline of business currently? I'm going to challenge you to take a spreadsheet or a white piece of paper and write it down. I'm going to challenge you to draw a line and say, what is the event? Question mark. And see if you can identify what is the event in everyone's life going on. And if you can't, most likely they're not a motivated seller. And I'd be willing to bet you that they're your most difficult clients right now. Look, you got one? I got two. You want to share with someone about that?
I have one guy who's, I thought the event was he was coming out of renting. He has a bunch of rental houses and he was ready to retire and move to the beach. I thought that was the event, but that's obviously not the event because he is very, very hard to get.
Yeah.
Like if you're ready to go, bro, that's,
Has he used words like, I don't need to sell?
Yeah, he used the, if it doesn't sell, I'll just keep renting. Like,
sure.
Then you're not. So, yeah, so now I'm seeing this now, but before when I was in the meeting. Okay, well, we'll get it sold, it's no problem about it.
Yeah, we teach others how to treat us. Why are we here? I mean, it's a pretty common question. Why are we here? We can do it your way and you can pay me the commission up front. Right? Or we can do it my way and I'll take it on the back. Both of them are good choices. Okay, with whatever. That's great. So we've got the events that lead to the source. That's why I wanted to focus here. Now we're going to break down the sources quickly. How many people you need to talk to, how much time you need to spend doing that based on your database. All right, guys, you ready? Yeah, Dustin. Yeah. Yeah. Who loves numbers in here? All right, yes. Started with that. All right, raise your hand if you have a database. Okay, shout out some numbers. How big?
100.
Okay.
350.
Okay.
225.
Anybody bigger than 1100?
Not yet.
MREA states. Number one and number two things to build a big business. Number one is make a list. Number two is never stop talking. So if you're sitting in this room and you're a new agent and you don't have a list, congratulations. You get to call a different set of people. Which is exciting, new people, right? So we've already talked about it. We've got database. Okay. Now give you some more sources. I gotta rewrite these. That's one.
That's why.
Okay.
Investment.
Okay,
Neighbors,
Wait a minute, what's the, maybe that question?
expired,
Oh,
withdraw, there you go. This vote, well, open house, good job. Referrals,
What about businesses?
B2B. I actually don't know the answer to that, but we can figure it out together. How about just listed sold? Everybody know what that is?
No.
Neighborhood circle prospecting. So when a home sells, usually 2 or more sell right away, so I was wondering when you plan on moving. So when you have a home that sells, or when you have a home that's listed, calling the neighbors that are not on the DNC, please consult your attorneys or prospector, not a broker or anyone that's not me. So when you list a home, right, a sign goes in the yard, we used to call around it and let everyone know that that listing was coming live on the market, and who do they know that would like to move into our neighborhood? It would be our way to get into business with the neighborhood. You do that over and over and over. Easily.
It's either hold
Home Realty Resource is the oldest data provider in the US.
What is it?
Home Realty Resource, COLE, Realty Resource. There's also Remind, which is on the back. I don't know if that provides data. Who does just listen to sold calls?
I have.
Where'd you guys get your list? Okay,
It wasn't very, like, hit or miss.
Cam, Mojo,
Or Warren.
Forewarned.
I used to service and they did, those parts within the area.
There's different ways. Yeah,
Tax records.
tax records. Yeah,
Tax records don't have phone.
you have to get those scrubbed, yeah, different ways to get it. Same thing with expired and withdrawn, you're calling leads, there's different data providers to get those. Who here has ever called an expired? Come on, guys, be proud of that, I mean, that's tough. All right, where do you get your expired list from, Freddie?
I got mine from For Sale by Owner, Facebook.
Okay, good.
I was looking somewhere.
Good.
I go to the FMLS.
We got FMLS, we got Vulcan. For those of you that are looking for where to go for this stuff, I'd be writing this down. So expired withdrawn, they said Vulcan, Mojo, FIFOs, I heard Mojo. You can also just go on Zillow.
Red X or-
RedX is another provider I've heard. Open house, there's not a source there, you are the source. Just sold, Whole Realty, Mojo, and again, if you're sitting in the room and you've been in the business for a long period of time. You're not going behind that line of value. Until you've earned the right to be in business with your database, because here's the deal, at the end of the day, we started with have.mets, they moved to Mets, and they circle down here the rest of their life, they churn the database. Well, if you've got all of these people that you've met, skip step A. Until you've made this all cleaned up. So if you've got 1,000-person database, write this down. Gary said, you have $120,000 in income for every 200 people in your database.
For every 200?
Every 200 people in your database, you have $120,000 in income if you are working it properly. When I got into business, I was 21 years old. My database was still drunk at bars. So that happened. So I had to be an expired and withdrawn phone book. I had no choice. I wasn't gonna wait on my business. I was gonna wait for all my friends to grow up, get jobs, and want to buy a house. So I had to go out and find it. I was door knocking. I was told it didn't matter. Asking for referrals for someone. I was going out. And it led to 66 transactions that year. And now to this day, some of our best and biggest clients started out in that expired withdrawal. It's possible. So if you're new in the business, yeah, rip the Band-Aid, get out there. Time to build that database. If you're experienced in the business or older, you have kids, build that big database, but remember. The first thing you're gonna do is earn the right to be in business with that, okay? But now what we're gonna talk about is we're gonna write down the financials here on how to do this, all right? So, we'll just start here. Can anybody tell me how many contacts that it takes? And when I say contacts, I mean conversation. Let me define that. A contact or a conversation is a two-way conversation with someone. In my world, it's phone. If you want to make a text or email, that's up to you. The quickest way is going to be to elevate that to a phone call. Is going to be, that's a contact, right? So how many people, for experienced agents in the room, how many people do you think you need to talk to in your database in order to get one transaction? 12.
25.
25. Okay, so that's great answers. They're all kind of in there. I'll tell you the difference between the two answers. If you're talking to 12 people and you're getting a deal, you are in great business with your database. Like, that tells me that if you're talking to 12 people, people know you, trust you, and they want to refer you business every day. Does that make sense? 25 might be it's a great number, so it's between 12 and 25. It's really kind of where it's at. If you're just getting into the business and you're pulling a list of 1,000, and you haven't gotten the business in, it could be 40 or 50 or 60, because you got to get through that. You got to get the bad out, keep the good in. But 20 to 25 is about exactly where I like to see people work on. That's like the sweet spot, 20 to 30. Okay, 12 is unbelievable. But 20 to 30 is really kind of a good one.
And that's two-way conversation.
Correct. Now, I was taught this, totally up to you. The key thing is that however you track it the same. Track what? Track it the same. So if you're counting text messages, emails, and phone calls as a contact, that's okay. So if you say it takes you 12 phone conversations to get to a transaction, and Reese tells me it takes 25, 12 are phone calls, 12 are text messages, you're both arriving at the same thing. He just has it broken down to the additional contacts. Does that make sense? But whatever you do the same. That's what's critical with this. Because what we're trying to get to is we're trying to take this from a sales to a silence. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I have a stack of $50 bills. You with me? Yeah. All right. And I want you to ask me if I want to buy or sell real estate. All right, go ahead.
You wanna buy or sell real estate?
No. Say it again.
What are your real estate goals then?
No. Say it again. Giving you $50 bills, keep going.
Doesn't know.
There's lots of 50s right there. I got a stack of them about this big right here. Come on, keep asking me about real estate.
How long you live in your house?
I don't want to sell. See, I just paid him $150 to get rejected 3 times. See, when we can get this number down to that, I'm going to show you guys this in a second. When we can get this down to that, the fear around talking to more people goes right. What's an average commission check in here? Yeah.
Well,
Who's a calculator person?
I don't want to.
Anybody? Somebody do 15,000 divided by 30? 30. 100?
What's that?
Without marketing. Who would be okay talking to people and get paid $500 every time they told you no? That was fast hand. We like that, you know? But that's how we have to look at it. See, I gave him $50 every time he made that call. See, you have 2 things, write this down when you're actually talking to people. You have your effort and you have your skill. Which of these do you think we can control the fastest? That's right, because skill takes time. So this number here is going to be based on your effort and your skill. So if you're brand new and you don't necessarily know what to say, or maybe you're not in business really great with your database yet, that number might be 100. It might be 200. But what's cool about it is you can take your annual income goal and you divide it by that number. That tells you exactly how many people you have to talk to on an annual basis in order to lead to that business. Make sense? Question so far before I finish off. Anybody?
How many isn't a good healthy database to get 100 deals each year?
So, well, it depends on your price point, right? So I think it's a really good question, because I've always looked at it from the monetary standpoint, like what's the income goal? So what's your average sales price?
By 400.
Okay, so 12,000 minus MLS, you're probably, let's call it 10 after fees and everything. So at 100, that's $1 million a year. So in order to do that, what is it, 8 to 10% of the database turns over a year? Is that right? So to do 100, you probably need a good solid 1,000 in there, but that is well worked. That is not just like, here's a list of 1,000 people. That is like, right, I mean, you are in business with these people. You are a friend on their Facebook, you're a friend on their Instagram, you're in tune with their lives, you're hitting the husband's wife's anniversary day. I mean, you are in business with that database. Does that make sense? I'm gonna get a better answer for you too.
I think that's about right.
Yeah. All right, what about expires? Let's walk through this. Because what I want everyone to leave with here, based on where you're at in your business, which is gonna be really cool, is we're gonna know exactly what the daily activities are and who you have to call based on where you're at in your business. Whether you're brand new or whether you've been doing this. Go ahead.
All right, so I missed 3 calls, but I didn't ask the right question. What are the right questions? What's the finesse that you're trying to get?
What you say right now doesn't matter, because the income per contact is based on your effort and skill. Because I know that if I gave you 100 people, and I gave Cameron 100 people, and I said, I want you to all, both of you to call all 100 people and meet me here in an hour. Like, yeah, right. One of you is gonna come up with a deal. So if he comes up with a deal, it needs 100 contacts for one deal.
But the skill of the conversation is part of the delivery.
But see, that's after the fact, we have to start with our effort.
It's not necessarily the skill you're looking for right now.
Let's do some more numbers.
Phone call.
That's right.
Because, and after that, you pick up the phone 1,000 numbers.
Does that make sense?
You're earning
That's the
money.
effort.
Yeah, but we have weekly calls about how to have good conversations and what to say so that you don't waste a lot of time because you don't ask the right questions.
Right.
In order to be better at, when you call a pitfall, what you say, when you call it fire, what to say. Knowing how to work that conversation.
Yeah.
Is a skill.
Sure.
The more skill you have, the less calls you have to make, you get hung up on it.
So do we wait until we have the right skill to make a call?
No, but all not learning skill.
Yeah, no, I get you, but right now, this is just where we start. It's gonna get better. When I first started, it took me about, it was like 128 contacts, 128 conversations to get a commission check. At the time, it was $3,000 or $4,000 a piece. By the time I was done in production, it was about every 17 contacts I would get a deal. That's a fun day. I remember calling my coach one day and I said, I'm just sick and tired of this. And he said, what is it? I said, I've been trying to hit my 150 contacts a week for like a year and I keep coming up short. He goes, Dustin, you guys will do 90 transactions. He goes, what if you didn't have to do 150 contacts at a point? And I'm like, right? So when your skill gets better, so will you. You'll get better at seeing those events that are going on in people's lives, all right? What about expires? Anybody know how many people you need to talk to on average to get a deal with an expired?
100 times as many.
15, 4 times, anybody? Okay.
I think they're motivated, they just didn't.
And again, these are gonna be variable based on effort and skill. If you've got for me, it was typically 3 to 6 contacts got me an appointment on an expired. But that was after dialing the phone and talking to over 33,000 people, over 333,000 dials. So yeah, that happened. So with the expired side, I would probably say 40 to 50. Now, this 20 to 30 mark with the database is gonna go down. The more you groom it, the more you touch it, the more you stay in business with it. Expired 40 to 50. Withdrawals 40 to 50. We'll actually just keep it on the 50 side. It's easier. What about for somebody others? Anybody?
75 to 100.
2 trillion.
2 trillion. It's actually 15. It's actually 15 to 25. It's pretty low.
That's it.
Yep. Referrals are gonna go in our database. So we're gonna leave that there. B2B, I don't know that answer.
And then just listed, just sold, it can be 150 to 200. That's okay.
You get one sale out of it, you're.
Yeah. We get so caught up in how much time it takes to make a ton of money. I mean, if it took you 15 hours a week to make $10,000. What is that? You can do that 2 or 3 times, you're making 30 grand a week, you're making $1.5 million a year.
I got $2 million sales off the postcard.
There you go.
Off of what?
Like, I think we forget how much money we actually get paid
$2
in
million
this job.
house sales.
What pays better, insurance or real estate?
First check, but then the one,
Different.
but I was. Yeah, where I was selling some pretty sad policy.
Yeah.
But real estate.
Yeah. So 15 to 20, right? So now we're here. So average sales price again, can somebody give me this divided by 50? 15,000 divided by 50? Oh. No, 300? No. 300? Yeah. Divided by what? 50? 50? 300. Okay. 300. This goes, can somebody give me?
120 is
Yeah,
average.
yeah.
750.
Open house. Somebody can give me that, right? How many people do you think have to come into your open house for you to convert them to a buyer? 5?
No, more than that.
For the record, I've never sold a house. This is can't believe this. It was never my thing. But I don't know how people convert open houses to deals. It's just a mystery.
I've done it quite good.
If you have a listing or just catching a buyer.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say in general, how many people have to come in order for you to get a deal?
I would say 20 to 25.
20, 25, is that all right? You said 5?
I mean, I've got sold the house.
Yeah.
I least sold the house, but you're gonna get a
I've
buyer.
done a lot. of open house.
Okay.
I would
We
say
go with 25?
20, 25.
Some of them probably already recommended.
A lot of them are.
Yeah.
Most of them are.
But
What's the number?
Oh, I'm sorry, 1500 divided by
25
is 600. And 15 divided by 150.
I'm gonna be very clear about this. The math is in the math. There is nothing else hiding right now. This is the start to your activities planned for 2023, if you haven't already done one. What is your income goal in the room? Who here wants to share their income goal for you? Reese?
600 in gross.
Awesome, perfect. Good job.
200.
200, okay, well,
360.
360. So, are you heavily database?
I am heavily referral.
Okay, so we'll put that in our database, right? It's a database that's our referral base. You're getting those from the database, right? Okay, good. So, and what majority of your business come from?
Just weird database.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's weird.
What about you, Reese?
Well, I just came off of a team, so I used to have lead systems. That's kind of one of my big questions I want to ask you at the end.
Yeah,
But right now it's really been Spear and referrals based, but kind of rebooting that within my own business right now, so.
okay, all right, good. So we've got 600, 360, 200, right? Could you guys do me a favor and divide your goals by that number, please? And get that back to me. I want everyone in the room, database or not, I want everyone to divide that number up based on as if it was your database.
Your income.
Whatever your goal is, and just, I mean, we just need to get a starting point.
So. Your goal divided by 500.
Now, remember, this number here is if you have been in business with your database aggressively for an extended period of time. So if you think it's higher, you might go with a lower number like 250 or 200 per contact. Does that make sense? If you're in great business with your database, meaning like if I walked down the street and said, hey, when you think of a realtor, who do you think of? And they say Joe, that's the kind of database I'm talking about with $500. But if you say something like, who's Joe? That's probably more like $100. All right, shout out a number.
400.
400. Okay,
600.
great. So now that we've got this. Now we're gonna talk about our day's work.
Because now we've got our sources. Now, if you're newer or you're gonna call different sources, all you have to do is divide this expired up, whatever the cost, the income per contact is for the expired, the withdrawn, the first sell my own. That's all you have to do is divide it up. So now we're gonna talk about how many days do we plan on working? Anybody know how many days we're gonna work this year? All of them. That's right. Has anybody in the room ever been accused of working on vacation? Yeah,
Sold 3 houses on my wedding day.
nice. That's awesome.
Not really.
Yeah. Anybody ever wish that they could achieve their life by design, but also being where their feet are?
Yes.
Right? I mean, imagine going on a vacation and actually being here. Imagine going on a vacation and leaving your phone here with someone. Maybe you go to your significant other and you say, hey, honey, I'm gonna be leaving, because they're not in real estate, I'm assuming they are. If you're both in real estate, then good luck. But you go to someone and you say, hey, Matt, will you, I mean, I'm gonna pay you referral fees for this, but will you service my business and answer this phone while I'm gone for a week? Imagine being able to do that and knowing that when you come back, right, you've already done your job. Who here worked in corporate America before they got real estate? Yeah. Did you know, generally speaking, when you were taking vacations at the beginning of the year? Pretty common, yeah. Because why? Because they gave you days off. They gave you pay time off, they gave you sick days, they gave you all these things. But we ran from the very thing that made us productive. The reason why we don't like demand is because we're not demand. The reason why we don't want to follow a schedule or talk about our days off is because we're realtors. Don't tell us what to do. I'm not telling you when I'm working and not working. Why do you think I got in this business? I want a boss. No, see, the reason you didn't want the calendar, the reason you didn't want the boss is because you felt like you weren't getting paid for the value of providing your business or wherever you worked. But if you treat your business like the business you used to work for, which ran on a P&L or profit and loss, except you're the owner, you get all the upside. So we have those moments where we work all day. Anybody ever heard the old adage of, so when are you available? 365, 7 days a week. An old realtor said, no, I am not available 365 days a year. Don't call me Sunday morning, don't call me Saturday. Because if I put in the best 40 to 50 hours a week, purely focused, one thing tailored per Gary Keller, why do I need to put more in? Now, I'm not saying that where you're at in your season of life, you're new. If you want to go 100 hours a week, go. But if you're married, you have kids, you have dogs, you have families, this is critical, this next part right here. So, the definition of a day's work, I want everyone to write this down. The definition of a day's work is lead generation. And I'll show you why this is critical. The definition of a day's work is when you lead generated, outbound, new business, right? Dash new business. So we're gonna have some qualifying questions here. Number one, is follow-up lead generation? No. Not new business. See, we have lead meters and we have lag meters. Lead meters lead to a closing. Lag meters are things you can't control. They just happen. So if you have a closing that day, did that happen 30 days ago or that day? You know what I'm saying? If we control the lead meters, the lag meters will happen when they happen. That's why a definition of a day work is, did you lead generate? It's gonna be controversial. Is putting a house under contract a day's work? No, it's exciting. But see, that's the hardest thing that we have to get over in our head, is that you don't get credit for working business you created 35 days ago. Because if you give your credit today for that, you are out of business in 35 days from now.
So you're saying following up in your database and not lead generation?
So you have prospecting, lead follow-up, going on appointments, and negotiating. And I'll write those down in a second. But every single day, you should be moving that pipeline forward.
Lead follow-up is a lag meter. You've already talked to those people and promised you're gonna call them back. You gotta think about it like a funnel. You gotta cram that funnel full. That's your prospecting. Your lead follow-up is something that you already have to do based on what you already did. Follow me there? Now, here's the cool part, write this down. 80% of all business comes from lead follow-up. So I'm not saying it's not important, Joe. I'm saying it's critical. And if you're not gonna lead follow-up, stop prospecting. There's just no point. Nothing more deflating than prospecting and lead generating and conversating and going to networking events and then never calling anybody back. Right? So with that being the case, who likes to prospect on Saturday and Sunday? Yes. All right, perfect. That's good. So would we all say in the room that we don't want to get up and lead generate with the purpose, the intent of creating new business on Saturday morning and Sunday morning? Is that okay in here? Are we all agreeing on that? So could we all agree by our definition now that we're taking the weekends off?
Yeah.
Look at that. We just gave you all your weekends back. All right, so we got 365. How many weeks are in the year? 52. Good job. And how many days are the weekend? 104. There you go. So 365 minus 104? 261. All right, perfect. Raise your hand if you want to take a vacation this year. Or next year. Okay, good. Just make sure. What we typically allocate here, just for safety purposes, between federal holidays, sick days, you treat it just like as if you worked a W-2 job, right? Take 2 vacations and you have 2 weeks of sick day. Or you can take 3 weeks of vacation, or you can take 6 months of vacation, whatever the number is. Here's the cool part about it. Let's say that you do 4 weeks off. All right, that's 4 business days, 4 business weeks off. That's minus 20, that's 241. So this is just an easy model to follow. You can add or subtract numbers however you want. Can you hit your goals by working half the year if you divide it up based on the activities? The answer is yes. If Cameron came to me and said, Dustin, I want to make $200,000 and I want to do it by June 1st, we can make a plan for that. It's super simple. Now you might have to do 3 or 4 times the work every day and stay on that schedule, but it's absolutely possible. If Reese came and said, hey, I don't want to work till October and I want to take the whole 4th quarter off for September, October, and I want to go travel in Europe, do that. It's easy. You just got to take the activities that you've determined that you're going to follow based on the sources you're going to talk to and divide it up by the days that you want to work. And as long as you do that, when you go on vacation, guess what? You get to be exactly where you're at. That makes sense? There's no more feeling that guilt of I could have done, should have done, would have done. You got it all out of the way. The great news is after you set this, you can also have pop-up stuff. So if Cameron says, you know, maybe the guys are calling and say, hey, what do you like to do for fun?
Hang out with my family.
Okay, cool.
Go fishing.
Perfect, fishing. So let's say you want to go on a fishing trip and you wanted to go in 2 weeks. Could you break down the activities that you needed in those 2 weeks so that when you're out, you don't miss business?
Yeah.
Sure. There's nothing more exciting than knowing you have a vacation coming up that you don't have to feel guilty about because you're not home working. You're like, yeah, shutting it down on Friday at 5, going fishing. And you're not thinking, man, I didn't make those calls. Or man, am I gonna hit my goals? So take whatever your number is. I want you to divide it by that. However many contacts you said you needed, however many conversations you said you needed, divided by that.
2.5.
Okay? This is fun. Scream out your numbers.
1.65.
Ah. What about you, Cameron?
Same thing, 1.65.
What about you? Reese?
4.92.
What about you? What's your number?
2.5.
Cameron?
It's gonna be 5.
Anybody else shocked? Think about that for a second. So let's say your skills, right? You really needed to work on that. We went from 500 to 250. Everybody double your number. What's it now?
6.
5.
Okay? Let's take it down. Okay, we're not gonna do any more math. That's too much, too much. What's your takeaway from that? How do you feel about that? We just gave you no weekends. We just gave you 4 weeks of vacation. And it's 10 people a day?
That's the easy button.
Right, why don't we get it every day? Does that make sense? So that is, so when we talk about how to take 100 listings in a year, this is where it gets really fun. Is we got to determine, is it feasible, is it possible based on our skill and our effort? So if it takes us 100, okay, so if it takes us 20, somebody do 100 times 20 contacts, please. 2,000. Okay, so divide that by 241, please.
20?
Uh-huh.
8.29. Eight already.
8.29, if you do it consistently and you have that level of skill that we wrote on the board, equals 100 listings. So it happens in the math, you just got to figure out where your effort and your skill falls. If you've got a big enough database to handle that, because here's the other thing too, if you're doing 8.29 a day, you got to make sure you have enough database to get there. If you don't, you got to supplement it with expireds, withdrawals, just listed, just sold, networking, charity events, church events, whoever you guys want to talk to. But the ultimate long-term goal is, how do you get your database big enough where you can talk to it 4 times a year and it produce your income goal? Go ahead.
How big a team do you need to service 100 listings a year?
Well, it depends on how much you want to work and what your price point is, because the higher end provides maybe more staffing from a service perspective. But generally speaking, I mean, you can do that with, 2 assistants. Pretty easily. Yeah, depends on if you're going all listings. Depends if you're going all buyers. Are you managing a team? Are you growing a team? Are you recruiting a team? Are you building culture around a team? See, those are all things, go ahead.
And that's not even counting the buyers you're gonna get from the listings.
No.
Right, that's another.
Yeah, so in my career, I've probably done over 400 or 500,000 or 400, 500 sales, and I've done less than 10 buyers in my whole career.
So what do you do in these cases? You send them to your,
At first, I was just referring them out to someone in the office. Now, there's a way to take a buyer's agent approach like a listing agent, right? If you're willing to take the call and invite them in for a buyer consultation, if you're willing to give them a buyer presentation, if you're willing to ask them to sign a buyer contract, if you're willing to use key pleas or whatever leverageable showing assistants are, you can do the buyer program the same as the listing program, but listing side typically takes less time. But there's a buyer's agent in New York, a good friend of mine. She was showing 15 to 20 buyers a weekend, about 5 to 7 houses. And she was leveraging a company like Keeley's. It didn't have it at the time. But at the end of the day, she had 10 or 15 conference calls, that were 15 to 20 minutes. Hey, would you like, or do we put an offer on? Any questions about this?
What number did you divide the 241?
Whatever your income goal, however many contacts you needed based on the source that you chose.
Okay.
So, again. Expires, $300 a contact. FISBOs, 15 to 25. Just listed, just sold, will you divide that, please? 200 divided by 100. It's $100 a pop? Okay, all right, so what's so if I want to do a whole year of listings, what would 100 times 100 be? All right. Okay, so what's 10,000 divided by 241?
41.49.
So if you're a newer agent and you just want to circle prospect all year, that's about 5 to 6 hours a day of calling. It's possible. Nothing is impossible until you do it, right? So you just got to keep going. If you want to be a just listen to soul guy, that's okay. I know people that kill it in that arena. Kill it. But you just have to understand that you're going to have to do something differently than someone with a big database. But here's what's fun. Secret here is, what they don't want to tell you is, you did it at one point. Yeah. People are like, I only call my database. Yeah.
So when you got into business, well, I called expired withdrawals, first sale matters, and just listed, just sold. Well, you don't want to talk about it. Everyone started somewhere. Does that make sense? And then you can look at, if you're an experienced agent in the room, reasons why I apply to you and you, I would look at your past sources. So like, for example, look at where your transactions came from over the past 2 or 3 years. And then you can actually break down how those represent a percentage in your business. And you can actually figure out how many contacts you need from each source. Does that make sense? So as we wrap up, what are some ahas? What are some questions? You guys are tired of hearing this all.
They're just quit working on front end. I mean, I sit here and I look at this and I think, if I actually work my business like I should.
Yeah.
I would, you know, like,
That's a good, powerful question. Dig deeper.
yeah.
Yeah. Asking about, but it's also knowing about why we're asking those questions. See, our skill, our income per hour goes up, our income per contact goes up when we ask those qualifying questions.
Right.
Because we don't waste time. If you don't ask qualifying questions, that's gonna go down to like $50 a contact, or $50 a conversation, or whatever number you come up with. But if you ask good qualifying questions, that goes up, 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 up. Because you're not spending as much time out in the field with that individual. Whereas you can handle that on the phone, an email, or a text message before you have to go out there in the field. Then that drops. There's some other ahas.
My biggest one was, you said lead generate, so you don't have to tolerate. It's about standards.
Yeah. Let's go over, and we'll wrap up here. Let's go over 4 or 5 things that we're gonna take action this week from this class.
I want to find out this again,
rather than follow up.
Go, Joe.
More new business rather than follow up, more lead gen of new business than follow up my old.
Okay, all right.
I was just saying, getting more in tune with the event, actually. Because I got, like I said, a couple people I'm dealing with that are very hard to deal with, and
Yeah.
what's the actual event.
Who in here is questioning their pipeline? Have the courage to do that. I mean, it's like the one thing that you think that, you know, I used to think this, like, why do I want to go this way at something? But what if in your pipeline, there's a void being filled where a motivated seller could come into? Don't be afraid of nothing, because something out there is waiting to get into that nothingness. There's a void being filled by an unmotivated seller in your pipeline. Open it up so a motivated seller can get in there.
I experienced that very painfully. I had a referral from my mother-in-law a couple of years ago. She was very difficult with it. She was wasting my all over the place, wasting my time. One day she had me all wired up on something really stupid. I missed the message on LinkedIn from first another house. They want to go see a property. I missed it. They met with the listing agent, bought it through the listing agent. They just sold it last year. So I probably missed out on almost $30,000 in GCI because I was messing around with this buyer wasted my time.
I think we were at the ALC. I think we were talking about that. Was this like when we were at the ALC clinic?
No, I think this is.
Yeah, we've all been there. It's just about the reminders. I mean, I was talking with Cameron the other day. It's like I took your class and said, okay, have you taken it 6 or 7 times? It's those reminders over and over and over and over. How many people here have lost weight and gained weight, then lost weight and then gained weight, and then lost weight and then gained weight? Sure. We all have. Every time we go back, it's like, okay, how do I lose weight? Okay, first, what do we weigh? Then what's our diet? And then how we exercise? But it's like we get amnesia every time. Like, how do we do this time? Oh, it's the same thing. But that's what these classes are about, is that if you've taken a class once, how many here have taken both? How many have taken more than once? More than 3 times? More than 4 times? Gary said that if you take bold, a minimum of 9 to 10 times, you're guaranteed to get the MRA status.
I'm at 8.
I'm taking it again.
But you gotta hear it over and over and over and over, because when we get up and we go out in the world for this. I mean, raise your hand if you're going to lunch. I am. You're gonna forget everything we talked about here. Rewrite your notes, re-attend the class and get it till it's over and over and over and over until, Joe, you feel guilty when you know outbound lead generated it. You gotta get to that moment. Because then when you work a day, you feel good about that day. When you don't have to work a day or you have to take a day off, you're done it. 2 more action steps and we'll get out of here.
I'm gonna.
So, stop acting like the desperate girl. And, we better qualify.
Better qualifying questions and stop acting.
Like, I feel like I've just been trying to accept any and everything.
Yeah,
So if I qualify better, I feel like have better results and it'll be easier for me to go.
yep. That's awesome. Australia?
I feel like I just need to start paying more attention, say like, even on social media at people's events, and like, what's going on in their lives.
If I know someone named Deb, no, not Deborah, who's the lady on TikTok? Come on.
The agent?
Yes.
Oh, God.
The blonde one?
Yes.
Glenda Baker. Glenda Baker.
So, I heard this one time, and, when she got in the business, the first thing she did was she hired an assistant, and then that assistant, most of the time, when you think of an assistant, you think transactions, you think listing manager, transaction coordinator, all this stuff. No. She hired an assistant, and her only job was to stalk everyone in her database on social media. And when they found an event going on in their life, her job was to send a gift on her behalf to their home. Everything. Dog's birthday, kid's birthday, graduation. That was her only job. That was it. And now she's one of the biggest producers in the state. The events are important to people. And you're right, we gotta
Just need to pay attention more.
pay attention more. We gotta take action to pay attention.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm guilty of this scrolling over an event and not doing anything about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've all done it. How do we take action?
You can send them a text for happy birthday instead of
Yeah.
just saying happy birthday and
Sure.
it doesn't mean as much. Michael always preaches that.
Send a video, hey, happy birthday. What if they woke up on their birthday and you were the first person they saw? You know, they get used to it. Oh, it's my birthday, here comes my video. You know? But
Yeah, back in your production days, like what are some things you wish you did differently, or like your 5-year reflection?
5-year reflection, let's see. Yeah, it's a good question. I think I had a better answer at the beginning than the end. I think I would have leveraged faster. I do. I also think that I would have leveraged faster, I think. Yeah. Oh, that's what. I wouldn't have thrown away my database. That's what I would have done. I talked to over 33,000 people over the course of 7 years. And I didn't have one of them in my database at the end of the 7 years.
Oh.
Why? Because I was told if someone's not gonna buy or sell real estate the next 7 to 10 days, throw them away. Yeah.
Where are they today?
Huh?
And where are they today?
I don't know. I deleted them. I mean, I deleted them at the end of every day for 6 years.
Who taught you that?
That's a whole other world, guys. So yeah, that's what I would have done differently, is I would have kept all of this data for people I talked to. Yeah, yeah, that's okay. That's what it is. Build it back up. So, guys, thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you Right, we had your time, like, I hope they're glad. Did you guys get a call? Yeah, let's, we look at. Thursday, or Friday. There's local people. All right. Yeah, let's visit. Thank you. Take care.
Wake up in the morning and sleep.
Sure, everything. You feel like You know, and believe it or not. Yes, and
Hard to follow.
And my son just, he's like 28, don't
So
each other briefly.
So she's involved.
I'm having dinner, I'll be back. I'm ready. No.
Yeah. Well, and it's wonderful. You got the right class, right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's all about consistency, you know, when you break it down to a daily amount, it's only 3 people, like, we're talking to 3 agents a day, she had to talk to people, it's like, wow, I can do that. But when you look at the big numbers, so like, I'll give you an example, our sales team has to talk to 41. People. It seems like a really big number, but it's not. Right, you have 12 people, all making 10-15 a day, that adds up really fast, really fast. But you gotta break it down. By the way, if you have to be wrong. Same out. Be done by Thursday. Take this approach and then get Friday off. All my work by every Friday, bring it to Tuesday, and then come back on Monday. Sure. Like. Good to see you. Goes well. And then I start clearing. I will show you. You think that they're involved, you think that maybe all of this sitting on your lap.
I don't think it pushed them.
And in between. Hey, this is John, I want to know. Hello, so and so, right, you're right, girl, Steve.
How did you read it?
Right there.
He did.
Yeah, I saw him like.
But you get stuck in it, right? Like, they don't suppose it, go back. And I thought you. And it was so quiet. Yeah. It's just already been. See more golden. What exactly for me? Yeah. The top of time of the bill, we usually. Hang on, get another one. On, right, you want to search agents? Yeah, type in the last name. Yeah. I would. Yes. Dude. Nice, Freddie, good lunch to you, buddy. Yeah. Yeah. Congrats, man. Getting immersed in the culture is like, it's not getting international. Yeah, I am in connection now. What was your takeaway? My takeaway from, kind of, no, from the class. In general, like how I am. Be more organized, trying to find out my own path, the right path for me on, taking on, yeah. How long you been in the business? Active for a month. Okay, and what did you do for this? I was, and the thing though, I was a better woman. I didn't know how to. And how. Yeah, because I was lost, but I was like, what do I say, what do I do? Yeah. And then. You through friends. Yeah. Make sure you can get out of it.
I know.
According to what?
And to make it get to
I told them to give you a call, they see the evidence success. You just kind of help them out. Like, give them home and just answer some questions I could tell by it. But his current record was not doing anything today. Right. Mine and then, realized it was better to be here than. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. Pleasure to meet you. Yes, anybody. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Take care. Thank you guys for having us.
Ready, man.
Yes, good job. I've been, yeah, take that, I'm telling you, divide it up. It's all takes.
Oh, no, I did it this season, like, really, did I do it?
But we, as real estate agents, for some reason, we have amnesia. What we do is, Freddie, we find out what works, we do it, and then we stop. I mean, think about it, right? How many people have sent a mailer? And what, hold on, let me turn this off while we're. How many people have sent a mailer